Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we explore the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
It's me. Hello, everyone, and hello to you, John.
Hello, Brendan. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's a beautiful day, and tomorrow's my birthday, by the way. So, what'd you get me? That's right. I just put you on the spot on the podcast.
Oh no!
That's okay. I'll give you some time to think about it. You've got till the end of the podcast.
Yes.
Things are fine. And oh wait, John, I was just handed this.
What's this?
Breaking news: Dracula has risen from the grave.
What? But
oh my god,
he was encased in ice last we saw him. I don't see any way in the world he would have gotten out of that.
Oh, but he will, and when he does, you'll be scratching your head at how likely it was that happened. Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm always happy for a return to Dracula. So I'm excited to talk about today's movie.
Me too.
And the fact that, generally speaking, I enjoyed it.
I'm right there with you. I would say I like this one.
Yeah.
This one's pretty good, and especially helps that we've had a run of really bad ones that made this one seem really good.
It is kind of the, it's like, okay, by comparison, this one shines-ish.
I think this is a solid Dracula movie.
It's a solid Dracula movie that still infuriates from time to time, has lots of problems, big problems. For everything this movie gets right, and for every awesome idea, because there's some really great ideas in it.
Oh, yeah.
There's at least 1.5 really dumb, stupid moves.
Yeah.
So this one almost breaks even. It's just sort of like, guys, you're almost there. You're almost to a great Dracula film, and you're just not there. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it at great length. But yeah, we're back in the arms of our friend Mr. Lee, and that's where I want to be, because I think they're safe arms.
They are. He's a big man. He makes me feel safe.
Yes, he really does. And that rolling, rich baritone, which I will imitate very poorly when I go through some of the backstory that I came up with for this particular film, 1968's Dracula Has Risen from the Grave.
Well, why don't you hit us with some of that backstory?
I'm going to hit you with it, but again, you may want to put your dukes up. Get your guards up. I don't want you to. Yeah, there you go. I don't want you getting inflicted with any physical harm. So 2 years from the last time we saw the King of the Vampires dropped into an icy moat, like a goth martini olive or a formally attired Alka-Seltzer, Dracula rose from the grave or ice. But star Christopher Lee returned under protest. Quote, "I got a call at home from Jimmy Carreras going, 'You must do this film. On my knees, I beg you. Do you know how many people you will keep from working at Hammer if you don't agree to do this film?' It really was a form of emotional blackmail." That's a great quote. He was goaded into doing it. With other people's jobs. That's cheap. That's really cheap. But anyway, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave was the third in the company series and the first not to be directed by Mr. Terrence Fisher. He was actually ill.
Yes.
He was replaced, as in The Evil of Frankenstein, by Freddie Francis, who once again stated his feelings on the material. "This was my second sort of monster horror film," he said. "And quite honestly, I don't like doing them." In another interview, he was quoted as saying, "I was more interested in the love affair between the boy and the girl than with Dracula. He was just a fly in the ointment." Unquote. Wow.
I see it. Yeah. I see it in the film.
Yes, I said, which explains a lot about some of the problems I had with this movie.
Yeah.
The reviews, especially in the U.S., were not kind, including this corker from the New York Times. "Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. Yes, again. And judging by this junky British film in color, a splatter with ketchup or paint or whatever to simulate the Count's favorite color, he can descend again.
Ooh.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah.
They had their knives out for this one.
They really did. Yet, despite such lambasting, the picture was Hammer's highest grossing in the Dracula series. Hammer added it to their record of hits. They'd had a good decade. In fact, on April 21st, 1968, 4 days before this movie started filming, Hammer was selected as a recipient of the Queen's Award to Industry for Export Achievement. It was the first film company to be so honored. Yes. Within a 3-year period, they had generated over £5 million for Britain, and that was a big deal back then, and now deserved a measure of respect. Even the reluctant vampire Count himself found pride in this. Said Mr. Lee, "After all these years of denigration and sneers from the industry, we have shown beyond a doubt that our films are as popular as any made all over the world." Speaking of Sir Christopher, as
I like
you
he
know,
says that, but then he's also like, "And they're making me make this new one."
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm reporting to set in just a few days to put that goddamn cape on again.
Against my will, threatened and held hostage.
I don't want anyone to go without supper. I suppose I'll have to be the Count again. So, I've enjoyed doing the little factoids from the life of Sir Christopher Lee. And today's factoid, just the one, but it's great because it actually comes directly from the set of this particular movie. Apparently, on the day they filmed the staking scene, not the final scene, because this movie gives us a surprise staking before the end.
Yes.
It happened to be Lee's 46th birthday, and as he wrestled to pull the stake from his heart, the lights on the set went out, and suddenly 2 beautiful starlets appeared bearing a cake with many candles on it. Happy Birthday was sung by everyone on the set, and slowly Mr. Lee began to rise from his coffin, blood dripping from his hands and chest, and he sank the stake into the center of the cake. He hissed, his fangs glinting in the light of the candles. "Suck off," he said. Everyone roared before breaking into uncontrollable laughter, much like our listeners, our audiences. We always leave them breaking into uncontrollable laughter.
Absolutely.
But I do love the idea of him getting surprised with a birthday cake after he had just been fake staked on set. That's great. And again, speaking of dad jokes, we had talked about that earlier. Suck off. That's a real Christopher Lee dad joke from 1968.
Once again, it further endears me to this man.
I love him.
Yeah,
I love the dude, and would not fight him because he could destroy me with probably various forms of martial arts.
As we've established, real life badass Christopher Lee.
Real life badass. He probably knew pressure points and shit. He could probably take me out with like a spork. He could probably kill
Deadly
you
with anything in his hand, right?
Deadly with anything. Yeah, absolutely. Here are today's revision pages. Slash. He slices your throat.
I don't care for these.
The pink pages from today's filming. Anyway, those are the little factoids behind this movie. And as our listeners know, Dracula's my dude. So was I excited and happy to start this one up? You damn right. Is this one I might delete the second we're done? No, I might keep this one on my hard drive because I've kept all the Dracula movies because that's me.
Sure.
So let's talk about it. Are you up for that, John?
You know what? Yeah, maybe this time I'm up for it, but just this once do I want to talk about Dracula. No.
Okay.
You caught me on a good day. This is a Dracula talking day.
But I have a feeling you'll want to talk about something else before the movie.
I want to talk about the poster, but I want to talk about 2 posters actually this time because
I want to talk about 3 posters because IMDb is very generous and gives us many. I think this one actually had a decent ad campaign. We have many posters to choose from. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about the very simple one with the Band-Aids.
Yes, which is something we had talked about just last week. I had thought it was a different one, but
we kind of couldn't remember which one had this poster. It was one of them.
I believe this is a U.S. poster. I could be wrong.
I mean, Is there a more Hammer poster than a shot that is just heaving bosom for the most part?
I have to say, again, I dislike that at this point, there's at least 2 posters that are leaning on, they're already doing kind of humorous parody kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like that. However, it is a good poster.
Yeah.
It's striking. You have Veronica Carlson, the lead actress, and it's just cleavage. And décolletage.
Yeah.
And her
just
neck.
And her mouth sort of open in a, you know, somewhat sexual expression.
But what's on her neck, John?
Well, the picture's in black and white, and the only thing in color are these 2 pink Band-Aids on her neck, implying a vampire's bite.
Yeah. And it's all black and white except for the pink of those Band-Aids. And again, really boring, but composed strikingly, like newspaper font, headline font. Dracula has risen from the grave, and with a humorous tagline in parentheses.
Obviously. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, that I don't like. That's the part I don't like about the poster, is the obvious.
It's funny.
Yeah, because the movie's not funny. This is not a joke Dracula movie.
No.
This is not George Hamilton as Dracula.
No. This is strictly as far as their advertising. They wanted to be kind of hip. It's 68. And we know that we
know that you know that we know.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. It's the big wink.
Yeah.
The other one I'm sure that you were wanting to talk about, is it the multicolored photo montage poster?
Oh, of course. That also has some interesting expressions from Mr. Lee on here.
I think this one is also U.S. I think the U.S. is the one. This
looks very U.S. This looks like a lot of posters from this era.
Yeah. This looks like maybe the same kind of poster you'd see for like the Parallax View and things like that.
Yeah, you know what has a poster like this is Harper, one of my favorite detective movies from the 60s, has this kind of thing where it's like a girl, a gun, Paul Newman's face, this thing, him punching a guy, all in panel.
Yeah, this is done with photos, but they are monochromatically colored and kind of sort of pop arty. You've got purples and blues and whites, and it's a pretty cool little design, but you're getting vignettes.
Yeah.
So you got press photo of Christopher Lee about to bite Veronica Carlson's neck, him just standing with the cape.
Interesting framing on that. He's just at the edge of the panel on that one.
Yeah, they're being all kinds of artistic.
Him being staked. I don't know what to describe this expression on the 4th photo as. He's guffawing?
Dracula just heard a real knee slapper. I've got to give it to you. That was good.
You know what? I think we need more of that in the Dracula movies. I would like to see a Dracula who's got a little bit more of a, ho ho, that was a corker.
Like every now and then he's overcome. It's like, normally I'm stoic, but that was a hilarious joke.
Well, Dracula's a tough laugh. If you get him, you should feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Then I like just tight on the fangs.
Yeah, tight on the fangs is good. And then I wish they hadn't put it on the poster, because it actually is an effective moment in the beginning of the movie.
A dead girl shoved into a church bell.
Yeah, a dead girl swinging from a church bell. And the type this time is bright orange. So this one's fairly striking, but then you gotta have your snarky little tagline.
What I love about the snarky little tagline is it is a little tagline. It's just like, excuse me, you just can't keep a good man down. Like, it should be.
Yeah. You just can't keep a good man down.
Well, you know what the other thing this reminds me of, and I'm talking about the tagline, the look of it and stuff, are the Matt Helm movies. The promotion almost seems like that.
Yeah.
It's like, we know it's a spy thing, and you know spy things, and we're winking.
Yeah, but this one's very much spy parody. The difference is the Matt Helm films, those posters, of course, match the mood of the film.
Right.
These don't.
Right.
These are effective advertising, but then you go see the movie, and it's deadly serious, as deadly serious as Hammer can be.
Right.
So this is kind of misleading, which I think maybe was a bit of a misfire and may have actually helped critics like the New York Times go, Jesus Christ, it's just another one of these things again.
Mm-hmm.
And even the ads can't, cover that up. They're trying to be hip and funny.
Well, I want to talk about this final one, which is the poster that's on the cover of my copy of this movie.
And I think this is the UK poster.
The purple face Dracula.
Yeah, purple face Dracula.
So most of the poster is taken up with this like watercolor, almost the way it's smeared at the edges. Giant purple face of Dracula, mouth agape, fangs bared, bloodshot eyes, crying blood
and dripping blood from places you don't expect.
Yeah, there's 2 streams of blood coming from his mouth, 1 from his eye, and then 2 that looks like he just caught himself shaving.
Yes.
Like they're just right on his cheek, a couple of streams of blood. Like, oh, got me.
It's weird placement. And then painterly portrait of our lead heroine barebacked.
Oh,
and that's a weird one because even though the painting's okayish and it does look like the actress,
which is rare on these.
And this particular scene was only in press photos. So they took this from one of the press photos where she's lying on the bed with her boyfriend, who we'll talk about, and she's got the nightgown open down her back, which doesn't happen in the movie. This happens in this
briefly happens in the movie. We get a close up to him opening but we don't see like a full shot of it. It's just sort of
right. And she actually, well, we'll talk about her feelings on the nudity or sexuality in it.
Can I tell you about the most confusing part of this, which is the
shadow,
the silhut?
Yeah.
Is that Dracula?
Is it Dracula?
I mean, it's just hand up. But he just sort of has his hand up.
And it is a flat black silhouette behind her. And so you're like left to assume that that's Dracula. And what is he doing? It looks like he's rearing back about to smack her.
It looks like he's going, oh my God, this woman's taking her clothes off.
Yeah. One thing that bugs me about the way she's painted is, if you'll notice, they're being stylistic, but the arm disappears.
Yes.
Into the folds and then her waist just goes away.
Yeah. Also,
it just dwindles.
I want to tell you there's the muscles on her back too.
Yeah.
What are? I don't think anyone has those muscles.
No, they invented some. And it looks like she hasn't skipped a back day when she goes to the gym.
She has back abs.
She's got back abs.
She's kind of got back pecs almost too. It looks like the chest muscles, but on her back.
Damn, you know that Veronica Carlson, she got some back abs.
Once again, I think our friend loves the ad campaign. I gotta see this picture.
This one, I feel cheated as an American that I didn't get to see this poster.
I like the one with the band-aids, though.
The band-aids worse for me.
Yeah.
I wonder who got paid to apply those.
Is there an opening with Hammer?
I know the movie is a period piece, but I almost wish that the Dracula's victims had the band-aids back then, because the bite mark makeups in this movie are horrible.
Yeah.
They're really bad.
They really
and they spend a lot of time zooming in on them. You're like, no, don't. That's not good looking. That's a bad job. But
let's talk about the taglines. There's a few taglines to this movie. We mentioned you just can't keep a good man down.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We have the most horrific Dracula film ever made, and Hammer say so. Well, but they're the ones who made the movie. How is that? Like, of course, Hammer says it's and we're the ones who are telling you it's great. Why would we lie to you? We're Hammer.
Baby's Day Out is the best baby movie ever made, says Paramount. or Columbia. I don't even know who made Baby's Day Out. I pulled that one out just for the reference.
I do, and it was 20th Century Fox.
Oh my God! Why do you know what studio made Baby's Day Out?
I remember the VHS in our house as a kid. That it was that had a Fox logo. That movie written by John Hughes, by the way.
I know. Yeah. And apparently, according to Fox, it was the best baby movie ever made.
That's what I heard. That's why I went and saw it. No, I was a kid.
Say so.
But yeah, I just remember I VHS boxes that sat on our shelf. I looked at them so much that I can tell you what a lot of stuff was made by the studio because I would look at the logos on the thing.
Well, I can remember the actual design of the poster. I can't remember who made the movie, and I did know it was a John Hughes film.
Yeah.
I need to clear room in my brain for more important things. Like, I don't know, family members' birthdays instead of things like that nonsense.
No.
Okay.
I've made peace with the kind of person I am.
Good. That's important.
So we have Hammer says it's the most horrific Dracula we've ever made. I like this one. He lives, they die. Christopher Lee is the fanged undead. You could leave out the Christopher Lee is the fang. I like he lives, they die though.
I think that's pretty good too. I like it. He lives, they die.
That's good. That's great. And then once again, Brendan, we have your tag for your dating profile.
Yep.
Inflamed with his vampire thirst for love and evil and beautiful girls. The two ands, I love that it makes it kind of clunky.
I know. That is the sentence structure is so awkward. Thirst for blood and evil.
Yeah.
And beautiful girls.
It's almost like inflamed with this vampire thirst for blood and evil, and they're like, no, we gotta mention the beautiful girls too. Throw that in there.
All right, but that's another and
beautiful girls. Hey, people like blood, evil, and beautiful girls. That's gonna get them into a movie.
Yeah,
blood and evil and beautiful girls.
We just sold another ticket, weirdly, to an American gentleman who's visiting Australia.
Oh, God, this sounds good.
I've been following this movie around the world as it opens.
I was down for the blood and the evil, but the second you mentioned beautiful girls, I was there. My wife doesn't know I'm here. Don't tell her.
This sounds like a dream picture.
I'm spending my entire per diem watching this movie in Australia.
This one is... We'll talk about it, but this one, we're getting closer to Hammer Prime, or at least the Hammer image that is locked in my mind. This one gets... Subtext has now become text. And this one gets to be one of the sexiest we've seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
And there is heaving bosoms aplenty, and there is...
Yeah, it is one of the sexiest we've seen yet, and firmly the most Catholic we've seen.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was actually doing something very daring with one of the character's stances, but then, of course, the movie has to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
But I like the way they're trying to actually appeal to... It's 68, so they're definitely going for, like, hey, you hippie free thinkers, questioning all the societal and religious mores. Yeah, man, this is your Dracula movie.
And we're talking 60s London too, and that's a wild time and place.
Dude, I think he's actually a decent enough actor, but I swear to God they cast our male lead just because he looks exactly like Roger Daltrey.
Thank you. That's exactly the same note I had. I said, oh, and Roger Daltrey enters the picture.
Throughout the movie, I just kept expecting him to talk about Teenage Wastelands and
people
how he wouldn't
try to keep us down.
talking about how he was not going to be fooled again.
Meet
he is
the new Count, same as the old Count. Yeah,
he is Daltrey 2.0.
Oh my God, I had to go on IMDb and like, did I miss this? Is Daltrey in a Hammer movie?
He looks dead on.
Really did.
Same
hair, similar build, everything about it. Because this guy's a real hunk in this movie in a way we haven't seen.
Can you hear me? Dracula, can you hear me?
Oh my God! By the way, I wish there was a Who rock opera about Dracula.
I wish there were just more Who Rock operas.
In
Tommy
general,
was fine,
sure.
but I want more.
Yeah.
Where's my Lifehouse? That's right. I'm nerd enough to know what would have been the sequel to Tommy was called Lifehouse, and it didn't happen, but most of the awesome songs ended up on Who's Next. Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Well played.
Done. Moving on.
So let's have this movie opens up with blood dripping titles.
Cheesy, but I wanted it. I was happy to see that.
This is the kind of cheesy I expect out of these movies. This is what I go in for.
The movie, the music, the score is all very gothic and overblown, and exactly what I want.
This movie is a pretty good, like, if I showed this to somebody, I'd be like, yeah, that's a pretty good encapsulation of a Dracula movie for the most part. It checks most of my boxes for a Dracula film.
Yep.
So,
and he talks a little bit.
Most of his lines are pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
there's some great Dracula lines. I wanted more. I just wanted, anytime he meets anybody, I just wanted like a good evening. That's all I'm looking for, really.
I just wanted more interactions. Period.
Yeah. I want that banter.
But then the titles are pretty effective. But Freddie Francis is like going, I know how to immediately reel people in.
My God.
I'm gonna have a guy on a bicycle in the woods.
Here, I'll give Freddie Francis this. Never expected the movie to begin this way.
Did not expect to see a delightful, learning challenged gentleman on a bicycle whistling to himself.
This is Norman Bacon, is this actor's name, who plays the whistling boy on the bike. He has a handful of credits, mostly from BBC stuff. He is in 2 episodes of Doctor Who from 1980.
Oh, nice.
So, that. Oh, and he's in the John Hurt 1984 movie.
Yeah, but Man on Station Platform. Come on.
I mean, the unforgettable performance of Man on Station Platform.
I like that.
He did seem to manage to get into the documentary about it, though, based on his credits there.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe there is one.
Yeah, in 2019, somebody made a documentary called "From Page to Screen: George Orwell's 1984."
Oh, yeah. It's a good one. It was overlooked at the time, and I think that it's extremely dour, but that's the source material.
Absolutely.
And John Hurt's John Hurt.
Always great.
Always good. Sorry, John Hurt.
So this whistling boy is biking his way to the church.
Yeah, now this is their first film, not their first film, but in the ones that we're viewing, that they were shooting at Elstree Studios. And you can tell a little bit because some of their standard sets are gone. And not that this looks bad, but this is sort of like, okay, guys, put a big cross on this building, and there's your church.
Yeah. I did think this is a church. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And when he walks into it, it's so soundstagey, almost community theater looking.
Well, and I love the just like folding chairs instead of pews or whatever in the church. They've just put out some wooden folding chairs.
Yeah, pretty much. But he's showing up on.
It's a church. I tell you, it's a church.
He's showing up. And he's the altar boy. That's his credit.
Yeah.
But we learned that he is mute and possibly learning challenged. But he shows up and he's there to clean up and get things ready.
He goes to pull the rope for the church bell, and he sees that blood is pouring down around it from up above.
Yeah.
And he slowly walks up the stairs to where the bell is, and we cut to the outside of the church and hear him scream.
We hear him scream as the local priest is also showing up, so he hears it.
Yeah.
I do think the priest, not so much the altar boy, but the priest gets lots of screen time in this, and even more screen time for the Monsignor. Yeah. Neither character gets a full name.
No, the Monsignor does get a first name, which is Ernst.
Yes. Yeah, Ernst or Ernst.
Because this is we're in Germany or Bavaria or something.
Yeah, Kleinenberg is what they keep calling the local village. And I keep going, where why did we leave Transylvania ever? Because at some point, maybe in the second of the Dracula films, they're like, okay, let's not talk about Transylvania anymore.
Because Dracula's got a sweet tooth and he moved where the chocolate is.
All right, he moves where the chocolate is. He drained Transylvania, so maybe he did move next door. Maybe he's in Bavaria or Austria or something, but there you go.
Transylvania's done. It's time to head to Austria.
I, as they say, tapped that. Time to move on to where the chocolate is.
We're going to Austria.
Load up the coach is the subtitle of this movie because there's a lot of load up the coaching in this movie.
There's a lot of and we've seen Peter Cushing's dramatic coach driving work. This movie, we get to see a lot of Christopher Lee dramatically, emphatically driving a coach.
Yeah. All I can say is, okay, so maybe you're not so hot on vampire movies. You don't know why you're watching this. This isn't your thing. But if you love seeing horses get whipped, you'll be like, oh, thank God this just happened to be on.
This might be the most horse whippings I've seen in the history of filming.
Well, Ben-Hur.
Yeah. Ben, it's tied with Ben-Hur.
This gets brought up in a lot of film conversations between film historians.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Ben-Hur or Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, but if you love to see a horse get just whipped into a froth, and no, there will be some people that bring up National Velvet. Fuck that noise. It's this or Ben-Hur.
Yeah. It's the eternal debate in film culture. Which one had more horse whippings? The answer will never be known.
We need to get back to plot. But anyway, our poor altar boy has gone up to the bell tower. He has screamed.
Yeah.
The priest comes in like, what up, yo?
Well, and I like he's like, what? Spit it out, boy. Like, here's the thing. Is the boy mute, or are we to believe this drove him?
Actually, I did misspeak because when he first rides up on his bike, there's like a local person there.
He says something to him.
Yeah, he does. He goes, it's just like, good morning, or something really quick. But that is literally all he'll say for the rest of the movie. And I think you are led to believe that he is shocked into muteness by what he's just seen.
Except for later. We see him later and he's like grunting and something. So it's not that he... So... He seems to have forgotten language is what has happened. Yeah.
He's doing kind of weird seal noises later in the movie.
When he can't, because I thought like, oh, he's like catatonic or something like that. But when it's just like, no, apparently this scared him so bad, language left his brain.
Yeah, he's doing seal noises. And by that I mean he starts singing "Kiss from a Rose." Anyway, sorry. The second I said seal noises, that's where my brain went. So the priest, the altar boy comes down. Altar boy can't spit it out.
Yeah, but the priest sees the blood on his hands, and he's like, "Well, I better check this out." And
priest goes up the stairs.
We follow the priest up the stairs, and he's looking around. He's like, "There is a ton of blood up here. I wonder what that's from." And this woman falls hanging inside of the church bell. Now, let me ask you this.
I know where you're going with this.
Who killed this woman? Because she's got the vampire bites in her neck, but it's been a year since Dracula went into the ice, and we see when he gets out of the ice, and there's no other vampires in the movie.
No, my friend. The year is about to pass. I believe that this killing was during the events of the previous movie. Because we're about to see a time lapse through seasons. The second we see this happen, and then the Monsignor comes up saying it has now been a year since Dracula died.
Okay, now I'm with you.
But it is still wonky, and it's also wonky because he killed a woman in a church.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't make any sense either.
Sacred ground.
When also we saw the whole time. I thought we pretty much saw the whole time he was alive in the last movie. From when he gets resurrected to when he goes into the ice and Prince of Darkness. Somewhere in there, he killed a woman in a church as well?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Didn't seem like he was around that long, and he was pretty much hanging out at the castle the whole time. So
I neglected to mention in my intro, and we haven't said it yet, but ladies and gentlemen, once again, give a round of applause to John Elder's screenwriting. Yes. Anthony Hines.
It doesn't get any better than this. Airtight plotting.
But you know what drives me crazy is there are some good ideas in this one.
There always are.
I'm like, God damn it. Can you imagine if he had just said, hey, Jimmy Sangster, I have some cool ideas, and then Jimmy Sangster wrote it?
Yeah.
We'd have a much different movie.
I'm too busy working on a very erotic episode of I Dream of Jeannie.
They keep saying that they don't want to show her navel. But here's the thing. This entire episode is about fetishism of the navel. It's all about how Tony Nelson, the astronaut, is obsessed with Ginny's navel. She actually shrinks him down to a tiny size, and he wanders into her navel.
They said we're not allowed to show her navel. They said nothing about her nipples.
That's Good luck putting a gem on top of her nipples. I still love that they're like, we can't show her navel, so Barbara Eden, we're gonna poke a little emerald right in your belly button.
Or sometimes they just pull the pants up.
Yeah, high waisted.
Yeah, you're just like, pants. Because I do love the idea that had America seen Barbara Eden's nipple, they would have just gone mad with horniness.
Well, her navel.
Her navel. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, her navel.
Her nipple in 1960s television would have blown. America would have imploded.
Yes, holy shit! The people's heads are exploding like scanners.
Yeah, and history books are like going. The destruction of the great American empire occurred on this date when an episode of the sitcom I Dream of Jeannie was aired, showcasing Barbara Eden's nipples. No, just the one nipple.
Yeah,
and exploding heads. Well, look, like 20 years later, they lost their shit, or 25 years later, over Janet Jackson's nipple for 5 seconds on a Super Bowl.
I was there. I remember watching that.
You were at the Super Bowl?
I was at the Super. I was there. I was on stage. I was the next act. I keep forgetting
your backup dancing days.
You can, if you pause the clip, you can see me go, "What?" when it happens.
Like it's gonna have you naked by the end of the song. Turns around and looks at you and nods, and you go, "Do it."
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh dear. Anyway, I do love the priest line when he finds the woman though, and he says, when shall we be free of his evil?
It's a great over-the-top comic booky line. Now, here's the thing.
It's 100% a comic booky line. When shall we be free of his evil?
I like the concept of this opening. Here's another thing where you're like going, this is starting things off. I want to see a dead woman drop from a bell in a church.
I'm in.
That's awesome. But Freddie Francis, he's capable, but he's not a good director.
No.
It's way too drawn out. I don't know why we're like, all right, first we see the guy on the bike, then he goes up, he screams, priest comes in, what's going on? And then let's show him go up every step. And then when he gets to the top of the bell tower, have him look around for about 5 minutes.
He really does search every nook and cranny of that bell tower. He's like, is it over?
And you're just like, going, guys, corner? You have an awesome shocker of a thing to happen. Yeah. Get to it.
Yeah.
Don't
lose the kid. Just have the priest come in, notice the blood, and go up. Like, you don't need. Yeah. Because I did, like, when he screamed, I was like, what'd he see?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why aren't you showing me? Oh,
well,
then we're just gonna bring another guy in who will see.
Yeah, we'll see it in about 6 minutes.
So yeah, then it cuts to the Monsignor on his way into town, and he's whipping some horses.
But you forgot the time lapse.
Yes.
They do like outside of the bell tower time lapse to, you see spring, winter, so you see the seasons pass, and then you hear voiceover, and I have a real problem with voiceover. If you're going to do voiceover in a film, it needs to be a character that it needs to either be a character. Mm-hmm. And that character has to last the entire movie.
And consistent voice, because this is the only voiceover in the movie.
And needs to be consistent and needs to be there at the end.
Yeah.
In this case, this is the only voiceover we get, and it's totally unnecessary. And it's the Monsignor voicing it's been a year since Dracula was destroyed, and now I'm going to check on Kleinenberg and see how it's doing. I'm going to look to the right, see some stock footage, and then ride into town.
And also, there's as you said, it's unnecessary because all of this information will be said in dialogue with him and other characters throughout.
He could have just walked into the church as he's going to do, then gone to the pub as he does next, and then talk to the priest. And the priest, he'd be like, "What's going on?" And then, well, the shadow of Dracula, whatever. And you go, well, but Dracula's been dead for a year. Would have told us everything we needed to know.
Because he goes to the church. The boy can't talk. And he's like, well, I don't understand. Why is the priest not here? Why is he not conducting services? This makes no sense.
The Monsignor is an older guy. The priest is a guy probably in his early 40s. And the Monsignor is basically just checking on the locals. This isn't his town, but he oversees, because he's the Monsignor. I guess it's his, I don't know what you call it, diocese or whatever. It's his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So he's going to check up, and he rides into town, and in the church is just the mute altar boy. And then the altar boy points to where the priest is, and the priest is getting his drink on in the local pub.
Oh, is he ever? I just wrote, priest is boozing it.
Yeah, he is rattled.
And he comes in and he's like, what's the meaning of this? And they're talking about, he's like, why are you all so scared? Dracula was destroyed a year ago. And he spends the best part of the first 15, 20 minutes of this movie going, what's the matter with all you people? Don't you know Dracula's dead? Please.
Yeah. Well, you need to set the stakes up. Literally.
Yeah.
He comes in and it's like, hey, it's Sunday. Why is the church empty? Why haven't you been reading saying mass? And the priest, who's on his way to getting drunk, is like, I did read mass. There was nobody there. He goes, why wasn't anybody there? He goes, no one comes anymore. Why don't they come anymore? Because the church is in the shadow.
Yeah.
And they go, and he's like, what the fuck does that mean? The shadow of the castle.
Yeah. It touches the church, they say. The other thing is, maybe they don't want to go back there since that woman was found dead in there and they're all kind of creeped out by it. Like, that would be a good, I don't know that I'd want to go back. And we found this woman, like, drained of all blood hanging from the bell. Yeah.
But that was a year ago.
Maybe we find a new church.
The Monsignor constantly, it is like this question thing. Well, why did it? Because of the shadow.
Yeah.
Well, why the shadow? Is like the shadow of the castle? Whose castle? Dracula's castle. He's like, but Dracula's been dead for a year. It's just like you said. It's 8 minutes of that, and then he's like going, but Dracula's dead.
And I did write what one of the guys in the bar says: Dracula may be dead, but evil is still there.
And again, this is all about let's set some mood and atmosphere, I guess. But it's again, you just sit there going, what? It's just questions of like, that makes no sense. And the whole idea of a shadow of evil being cast on the church from the castle is never followed up on. Dracula literally has been dead for years.
We're told instead of shown, of course.
Yeah, and so none of this has any bearing. All this leads to, the whole reason this exists is the Monsignor's like going, well, again, it's 20 questions with the priest.
Yeah.
Well, have you been to the castle since he was killed? And the priest is like, no. He's like going, all right, man, get your bags.
It's you and me, right now. We're going to Dracula's castle. and he's like, and I'll show you. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Nothing to be afraid of. They even have a gift shop there. Very nice. You get a T-shirt. It's overpriced, but it's really awesome.
It's quality shirt though. That's gonna last you a while.
It's a beefy tee, and I think you know what I mean when I say beefy tee.
So these two pack up these things, and the Monsignor's like, hold on, let me grab this gigantic cross.
I know it's dumb, and they don't really sell we're climbing up a mountainside.
But I do love a guy with a huge cross slung on his back.
Me too. It looks pretty boss. They are, again, they don't have the same sets that they had, so they don't even have the same outside of that historic home that they had been using for Frankenstein's manor and Dracula's castle. So they're really not selling. It looks like, a fake hill that they climb, and they end up at the front door of a castle that looks very different from the one that we saw
They
before.
don't end up there because halfway up the mountain, the priest is like, I can't. All right, I just can't.
The priest, who's the younger man, is like, I'm wiped out, man.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I just can't do it.
And he says it'll be dark soon, and that's when the evil comes out.
And the Monsignor's like, whatever, wimp. All right, dude,
Fine.
you rest here.
Yeah, you stay here. I, a conservatively 40 years older man than you, am going up this mountain, and I'm going to exorcise a vampire.
And he does.
Yeah.
He goes up there. He recites the Latin. He puts the gigantic cross through the handles of the
And while this is all happening, of course, lightning is striking all around him.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
And then you have,
and then he almost like dusts his hands and like a done and done.
Done and done. But while he's been doing this, Scaredy Cat Priest is like, I know I was told to stay here, but I'm getting. And he slips, he falls.
Almost immediately slips, like basically turns around and slips.
Yeah. And he shouldn't have done that. And then, weirdly, for a film that was released, it was made by Hammer, released by Warner Brothers, they included Disney sound effect, the goofy.
I did think, how did they not get sued over this?
As the priest falls, cracks his head open, and here is where you just gotta go, okay, movie.
Because he falls onto the ice, right, and cracks it open.
Yes, but also cracks his head. So
it's a comical series of errors here.
It really is, and it's an alarming amount of blood. I need to bring that up because it will be important in just a moment. An alarming amount of blood comes out of his head, goes across the ice, drips through a crack in the ice, right into Dracula's mouth.
Yeah.
And we see Dracula's mouth go, nom, 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 nom.
That was my favorite part, is when Dracula's like,
close up. He has like,
some good blood.
Damn. That tastes like, is that priest?
It's holy blood.
Try it, little priest.
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd. So that is how Dracula is resurrecting himself. And then
it's just matter of circumstance and accident that this guy gets resurrected, to be fair, in this time. Nobody's bringing Dracula back.
So I thought, watching it, this early part, I'm like, well, dude, Priest is fucking dead, because look at the amount of blood that came out, and he's just lying still on the ice. But then he gets up, and when he gets up, Dracula's already out of the ice, just standing there looking at him hypnotically, like, well, you're mine now.
The priest goes to wash the blood off in the water, and he sees Dracula's reflection in the water, which I was like, what? Wait.
What I need to talk about is when he rises up, the priest, and as you say, he's using water to wipe the blood off. There's no blood on his forehead.
No.
I was like, continuity error? Come on, people. We literally saw a fountain. Yeah. A literal lake of blood came out of his head.
I like to imagine that Dracula just followed that all the way up and licked it all clean. Got all the blood he could.
But it is true. The first glimpse we have of Dracula outside of him being under the ice is in a reflection in the water where the priest goes, oh, and he's doing the hand. He's doing the hypnotic hand in the reflection.
He looks fucking great. That cape on point.
I did forget that Dracula, as played by Christopher Lee, not only does not have the traditional sort of arched collar on his cloak. He never does. He has a high collar, but not an arched collar.
Right.
He also doesn't really do the formal wear. I mean, that I always associate. Now, true, what time period are we talking about? Dracula as Christopher Lee is just wearing like just it's a black suit.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a bare white, maybe there's a shirt under there that's white, but you don't see anything. So he just is a black column. He's just this enormous figure. He's a pillar of blackness. But he does look badass.
He does.
And he does the hypnotic thing, and the priest, man, he's done.
Oh yeah. He is in. And we get a close up, the first of many in this movie, this bloodshot red eyes.
Bloodshot red eyes, it's all I want.
Doesn't
and I
say anything
this is
here, I don't think.
No, he doesn't, not at this point. But this is one of the good concepts. This is where I'm going to go, hey, Anthony Hines, a priest, a weak priest being the thrall of Dracula.
Love it.
Awesome concept.
Really cool. Really cool.
Anyway.
So the Monsignor heads back to town, and he goes to the bar, and he's like, hey, don't worry, you guys. I destroyed the evil for good. No evil around here anymore. It's all taken care of.
And he also goes, where's the priest, by the way? He was supposed to wait for me.
Has he shown up? Has he come back? Has he been around? No? And he's like, well, I'm sure he's fine. Anyway, I'm leaving town. And then this is maybe my favorite scene in the movie, when it cuts back to Dracula and the priest arriving at Dracula's castle. And Dracula sees this cross on his door and loses his shit about it. And I love it. So he's like, who did this?
He grabs the priest. He's like going, who did this?
Yeah.
Who did this thing?
Yeah.
And it's just Christopher Lee, when he shows rage, it's all I want. And him with dialogue, letting that voice boom out. Yeah. It's the power that I want from Dracula. And anyone would be afraid to be gripped by this man saying, who did this thing?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And immediately the priest rats out the Monsignor. He's like, it was the Monsignor. And he's like, do you know where this Monsignor is? And he's basically what I love about this movie is from here on out, Dracula's whole motivation is to fuck over the guy who ruined his house.
Yeah. But, okay. As much as I love all this, we're off to a rip snorting start. Dracula gets sidelined almost instantly. And here's the problem. All right. So the Monsignor has done an exorcism and basically made the castle holy ground, which is, obviously Dracula can't rest there. He's pissed off. He's angry. His home has been sullied by goodness.
I still had mortgage payments on that house.
At the end of the movie, he has the lady take the cross off and do all this. And I'm like, why didn't Dracula right here, right now, have the priest do that?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
Because first this needs to be rectified. Then I'm fixing the house.
Yeah, so
Step one,
anyway,
revenge on my enemies.
I do love what does it cut to immediately now? Does it cut to Baker guy, Roger Daltrey?
No, it cuts to the Monsignor coming home.
Oh, right.
With his sister, his sister, who it took me a while to figure out this was his sister. I wasn't sure who
it's his sister-in-law.
Oh, it's his sister-in-law.
Yeah, it's his sister-in-law because it's like, she's like, you're such a good man and you do such wonderful things. And, and he goes, well, you're great too. And I'm so glad that my brother, picked you, kind of thing. He mentions the dead brother.
That's right. It's the dead brother, because there's even a thing where he says, like, you're all but a wife to me. She's like, well, yeah, we'd have to do some other things to be a wife. And he's like, and she's immediately goes, like, I'm sorry that I ever
there's
implied.
An implication. Yeah, that it's like, she's like, well, your brother's dead, but I dig you, Ernst. I would get with you if you weren't being such a Monsignor about things.
Yeah.
But
Come on. It's the 1890s now. Get with the program. Like
he is living with his sister-in-law and his niece.
Yeah.
And they're good people. They're wonderful people.
Yeah. He comes home. She says, "Oh, you shouldn't travel so much," and takes his boots off, and it's all And she says, "Oh no." Then it cuts to the priest digging up a coffin in a graveyard. I love this scene.
I love this scene too.
They dig up this coffin. They open it up. There's what looks like a staked vampire in it. A woman.
There's definitely a woman in there, like a desiccated woman corpse.
Yeah,
maybe a vampire.
But she's got
blood in there.
the bloody the blood, the wound on her is right on her heart. So I'm taking this as a bride of Dracula, and they just dump her out and take the coffin.
They dump her out, and her coffin is where Dracula makes himself comfy for the rest of the movie, and it has her name on it too, like like a plaque.
I need a coffin.
The inside of the coffin has also blood in it, but it's badly staged paint, so it looks like vaguely lavender or purple colored. I was like, geez, guys, come on. Did you not want to permanently stain the satin on the inside of this fake coffin? Whatever.
Absolutely not.
But
we have to use it again next week for another movie.
Again, it's a cool scene. The priest is dumping a body out. Like, is this good? Will this be fine for you?
That'll do.
And basically, he's going to drive the coach while Dracula chills in the coffin.
And so then it cuts back to the Monsignor talking about how, it's Maria's birthday, and we're going to have a little party for her. And she's bringing a boy.
Yeah, she likes a local boy who is a baker's assistant.
Yeah, his name's Paul, but he does much studying, so he's going to be more than a baker's assistant someday.
Yeah.
Cut to Roger Daltrey.
Don't cry, don't raise your eye. Yeah. It's only teenage wasteland.
We cut to him throwing a microphone around, swinging it by its cord.
Really strange because it's 1890. Where did that mic come from? I don't care. This looks badass.
Yeah.
And it's clear from this entire movie that he has shoved something extra down his pants. You're like, that is a bulge. That's a rock star bulge.
Well, we are introduced to this guy shoveling coal into a fire, shirtless.
Yep.
This guy works out. This is a fit, handsome gentleman.
He is. I mean, Hammer's, I think, being very canny. It's like, all right, we need to change the image of our leading men, and so here is a today's kind of guy. So he's, he has period, non-specific, clearly 1960s type Roger Daltrey hair, and he's introduced as a real scholar, a thinker, and he's also kind of cocky, like Michael Ripper, who we love this guy.
By the way, I think Michael Ripper may, by the end of this podcast, set the record for most appearances in these movies.
He may, and we probably should do some kind of sidebar on him because he is such a presence in all these Hammer films.
He just keeps showing up.
He's a solid supporting actor and has a great name, but he's usually the nebbishy little dude. And here he is, the guy who runs the pub restaurant-ish place where our
all-purpose eatery.
Which also has has rooms.
Yeah. It's an all-in-one set for Hammer.
He's the he's Max, and he runs this place, and he's not the father, but he's the father figure for our lead hero. And he's basically going, you're so smart, you spend all your time reading those books, but you're still just, I don't know what Maria sees in you. He likes the kid, but he's like going, you're still at the end of the day just an assistant baker. He's like, shows what you know, old man. I'm cool and I'm smart and I've got ambition and I'm gonna marry Maria and things are gonna be awesome.
I'm gonna marry Maria and I won't live in this town forever. He talks about that. Yeah. By the way, I want to bring up that this is Barry Andrews that plays Paul in this movie, and it's time for 007 Corner because this guy's in a Bond movie.
Dun 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 dun. He sure is in The Spy Who Loved Me.
He's in The Spy Who Loved Me, one of my favorite Bond movies.
It is a good one.
1977. Don't imagine he has much of a part since he's credited as HMS Ranger crewman, but
it's that whole thing where they're on that boat.
Yes, they steal the submarines in that movie. Right. And that movie has one of my favorite Bond end battles. It is quite an epic finale when he lets out those crewmen from the submarine, and there is much shooting and exploding of things at the end of that film.
There sure is. And then there's one of the best or worst, depending on how much you like Roger Moore, closing little entendres at the end of it.
One of the best because I love Roger Moore, of course.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure if it tops the one from Moonraker, which I just sorry. It's all about re-entry and with this we'll keep going.
Believe he's attempting re-entry, sir.
Jesus. All right, that was for you, Mr. Gorley. I'm glad you're listening. Anyway,
yes, yeah, and so he does go on about like, oh, you'll see, one day I'll be a big shot. Is basically what this scene is.
Mm-hmm. This is Paul.
I just keep imagining Mark Wahlberg and Boogie Nights going, I'm gonna be a big bright shining star.
You got the touch. I'm not gonna sing anymore. I'm sorry, I've been singing too much. But this guy looks a lot like Roger Daltrey.
A very musical episode of the show. Yeah, and so he has ambitions to leave the town, and he's always in his room with those books.
Yep. Can't get enough of them.
And then
Maria.
Then we cut to, by God, it's not a Hammer movie without a rowdy pub.
These people are having a blast. And this time, not only is, this place, actually, this place is much more full than some of we've seen. I was like, oh, they actually got some extras, and it's actually a rowdy pub instead of like 4 asshole kids like it was in the previous one.
Yeah.
So here we have an actual rowdy pub with youngsters. They're all like cool college-looking kids. And the pub has a saucy, youngish barmaid.
Oh, yes.
Whose name is Xena.
Xena, the warrior princess. No.
Played by Barbara Ewing.
Ooh, she is from New Zealand, though.
Is she really?
Yeah, which is where they shot a lot of that stuff.
Z here.
Yes.
Not an X.
Still with us, by the way. This Barbara
great.
Ewing. Yeah.
I liked her in this.
Yeah.
She gets a lot more to do than you would think from the way she's introduced.
Yes, she's actually kind of interesting in this movie.
Yeah, she gets a cool character turn.
There are a lot of saucy promotional photos of her from this movie.
Of course. What would Jeez, Hammer knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So she is beloved of all these folks. All these college kids have the big crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably flirted with and or dated most of them. And that probably includes our friend Paul, who comes in, right? He comes in here.
Yes, he does come in here. And the gentlemen in this pub are playing a game in which they are balancing a glass of beer on top of a broomstick while drinking another glass of beer and twirling.
The glass of beer isn't like balanced because that would be impossible, but they're using the broomstick to press the glass of beer against the ceiling.
I'm sorry, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, so and you have to take a drink and you have to turn in a circle whilst keeping that glass of beer pinned against the ceiling, take another drink. Eventually, of course, you'll get wobbly and the glass of beer will fall. And they also have a stupid song that they sing.
And then there's broken glass in the bar, which I'm just thinking, like, how is this okay with ownership?
Why is the bar okay in this dumb game and the dumb song?
I mean, God, this is a bar I would leave immediately. Basically, after I'm like, oh, these guys are ruining our evening.
So here's the thing: Paul is about to meet his beloved's mother and uncle that night. He's dressed up nice. He has flowers.
Because all the rowdy pub goers are making fun of him for, oh no, look at him, he's all dressed up.
Look at him, he's all dressed up. And then they peer pressure him into doing the dumb beer trick.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh no. And then he's like, I can't get drunk because I'm going to this thing. And they're like, oh, just play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the lovely young woman walks in while he's doing it.
Maria, and when she walks in, that distracts him, and you better believe that beer falls and spills all over him.
So he is drenched in beer. And even though they make this whole thing about like he can't change, he has to go to the little dinner party, he looks perfectly fine.
He does.
It's just like it's like the hair would be matted and drying out. He'd have a stain. No, he shows up looking fine. They just make wrinkled noses like he stinks of beer, like he's drenched. But he doesn't look bad at all. I'm like, dude, come on. But anyway, she's like, oh, Paul, how could you? He's like, I'm sorry, dear. Oh, I hope I don't blow this meeting. And she's like, it'll be fine. I love you. She's very forgiving.
You'll reek of beer, but it's okay.
Yeah, and this is our lead female character played Maria is played by Veronica Carlson,
who becomes a Hammer regular for a while.
We will see her. We will see her at least a couple more times. And she stuck it out for a while and then disappeared. And apparently came back for a couple of things later in her life.
Well, she's in one of David Niven's finest performances in Old Dracula.
Old Dracula, which I used to do a dinner party thing with friends, and we would switch off bringing bad movies.
Yeah,
I did not bring Old Dracula. Someone else did once.
I would have guessed it was you.
Yes, but it was the only time I've watched it all the way through. No, I brought The Apple.
Which is Jesus! I've seen that movie.
An amazing musical from 1980. Anyway, one of my favorites. But this is she's lovely. She was a model who was literally just picked out of, like, the producer saw a photo spread she did.
The IMDb trivia has something about this. Where was I? About specifically the modeling pictures they saw of her, which sounds very like what I imagine of Hammer, which is that they saw some bikini shots of her and said, "Bring her in, bring her in. Let's have a look at her."
And even though I read a couple of interviews with her where she of course very gracefully goes, "Well, I'm glad I have fans. I was never a very good actress." I don't think she's bad. I mean, she's not amazing, but I will say that compared to some of the models that Hammer has put in their films, I think she does a decent job in this thing. And I think she does get better in the next couple of movies that she's in. But here, she needs to be sweet and virginal, but then kind of turns sexy and seduced, and that works too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her thing. But what I also loved finding out about her was cartoonist. She's an artist. Like, that was her thing. Was she was an art school student, and she actually has published cartoons while she was doing the Hammer movies. And so she's an artist who also just happened to model and then ended up in movies.
That's really cool.
Yep. But anyway, that's Veronica Carlson. She comes in here and is like, "Oh, Paul, they'll love you. Doesn't matter." So off they go to their dinner party.
And he's swinging around a lamppost and kissing her, and it's all they flirt about on the streets here, and aren't they cute?
It's all adorable.
And so she comes in, or they come in, and she does not know that her uncle. She does not know about the uncle, that he's come back, that he's there.
Oh,
that's a surprise.
Right. That's right. Yes.
That's a surprise. And so all of a sudden it's like, yipes, the Monseigneur's here.
Gulp.
Yeah. And as I write this down, it is a very Hugh Grant level of being charmingly befuddled that Paul shows here, where he's like, I do smell like beer, but it was just a silly game, like.
He goes through the whole thing. He explains the silly game. And one thing I did like here was the ostensible square older people are actually like, "Oh, don't worry about it, Paul." Like, even the Monseigneur's like, "Oh, you have to be acceptable because Maria loves you." It's not till later that things get uncomfortable. Right here, they're like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Come and have a seat. You're a fine young man," and da-da-da. And Maria thinks the world of you. So, of course, you can't be all bad.
We then cut from this to Dracula whipping the shit out of some horses on a coach.
And there are some people out there, again, there are fetishes you can't even imagine. There are people that have this on a loop that just are showing the scene over and over.
Can I talk about, though? I love the whipping sound because it almost sounds like a laser blast. It doesn't just like a.
Well, the Hammer sound effects library is what George Lucas went to for a lot of the stuff from Star Wars.
It's that same blaster sound. It really does have that vibe to it. It was like, that's not a whipping sound.
If you isolate some tracks on Star Wars, the original movie, you can actually hear horses whinnying in the background.
Oh, no.
I
didn't remember.
Yeah,
I didn't recall horses on the Death Star.
For some reason, Dracula is driving the horses in this scene, with the priest like just hanging out next to him.
And the way it's sped up, he's just like,
yeah.
He gives Cushing a run for his money.
I got to get somewhere before the sun comes up. what is with these movies? We've seen so many from the Universal years to here. It's like, why is Dracula always driving these coaches? Now, granted, he does drive the coach in the novel that brings Jonathan, disguises himself.
He just gets a kick out of it.
Yeah, but I keep thinking, you're kind of royalty. Yeah. You should be having people drive you, my friend.
Oh, I like taking it out for a spin myself.
Yeah, nothing quite like whipping a horse.
Yeah. So then we cut back, and now they're enjoying cake at Maria's birthday party, and we
are 25 minutes into this movie, or half an hour into this movie, and Dracula has said one line, been badass, but really, it is like Freddie Francis said. He is more interested in this love story between
the
guy and the
gal.
gal.
Dracula is literally speeding his way to try to get back into this movie. Oh, I hear the movie's going over there.
He's not aiming on a particular path or looking at landmarks. He can actually see the plot ahead, and he's like going, "Must get back to the plot." And he does get there eventually, but for now, he's just on his way.
He's. I swear I'll be in this movie later. So yeah, Dracula. I like they clearly put this in too to be like, well, this is a while without Dracula. We better remind people that Dracula's coming later in this movie.
It's an IOU. Yeah. IOU, one vampire lord.
Yeah,
and here
exactly. And so the Monsignor offers Paul a cigar, and he says, "Oh no, this makes me sick." He's like, "Oh, good. I like an honest man who will tell people the truth." Whatever, and he talks about, why weren't you in church this Sunday, though, or whatever?
Well, he says, he goes, he's like, oh, I understand that you're self-educated. That's good. I think that's good. You're an honest guy. I love that. And just because he's a Monsignor, he goes, and what church do you attend? And he's like, oh, well, and then the Monsignor goes, well, there's like 9 in this town. So, I mean, and he's like, well, I wasn't at church this week. And Maria steps in to go, he's not really from this town, so he doesn't have a church.
And I do love the Monsignor's life. Good God, you're not a Protestant, are you?
And he's like, oh, no. He goes, I'm an atheist.
Which I'll tell you this right now. I was shocked to hear the word atheist in this movie. Shocked.
Well, that's where I literally thought, I was like, this is another cool concept. And it's a concept where it does feel like we're being very 1968. This guy is a rebel. He's not like, fuck the establishment, but he's clearly, he thinks for himself, and he's like, and yeah, I'm sorry, I'm an atheist. I'm ambitious. I love this young lady, and I'm sorry if you have a problem with my lack of beliefs, man.
Oh, because immediately he starts, what?
The Monsignor, who was totally cool with Paul up to this moment, is like, I can't even. He says, I can't even.
Yeah.
And he gets up and can't even look at the kid anymore.
Yeah.
And then Anna, the mother, comes in and is like, what's going on? Is like, well, turns out Paul's an atheist. And then Paul, being still polite, goes, should I leave? And it's like, yeah, Paul, we think that'd be for the best. And so Paul's like, sorry, I screwed everything up. Bye. That's it. He said, and that's the end of the movie.
Bye, everybody.
Sorry, I screwed everything up.
And
bye.
Paul, like the atheist he is, what does he do? He immediately runs to the bar.
He does. And they're like, oh, it's crazy. You're back so early. And that's Xena saying that. Because apparently Paul stays here. Like, his lodgings are in the rooms above the pub or whatever.
Right.
And she's like, you're back early from there. He goes, well, I kind of screwed things up with the Monsignor. And she's like, oops, that's bad. And she's like, he's like, pour me a drink. And she goes, but you don't really drink. He's like, yeah, I am tonight. And he proceeds to get drunk.
Yeah.
And hits on Xena when he gets drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, but you're with Maria. And he's like, she ain't here.
Yeah.
And Daddy Horny Michael. Sorry, I've been watching Arrested Development.
Daddy Horny Michael. He said a lot of lovely things. One of my favorite cuts in that show.
It is one of the best ever.
Yeah.
So Xena is like...
Xena's kind of into him, though.
Well, that's the thing, is that you get the impression that Xena knows this is bad, and you never know if she's going to go all the way with it. But she's sort of like, well, I do like Paul, and he's a hottie. He looks exactly like Roger Daltrey. So she takes him up to his room and is starting to undress him for getting ready for bed and possibly more.
Mm-hmm.
When Maria walks in, and Maria, even though she's like, "Oh, what's all this then?" She says,
"What's all this then?"
She handles it pretty well. She doesn't go, "You bitch." She just goes, I think I can help Paul get to bed now. Thank you." And Xena's like, "All right, he's had a lot to drink. Sorry about that." So Xena, looking like, "Damn, I almost got that." She walks out and leaves Maria to see to Paul, who's pretty much out like a light.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought this was going to turn into something more, and it doesn't. Because it does seem like a... I mean, maybe I've been watching too much Three's Company, but I thought this was going to be some sort of terrible misunderstanding.
It was like, again, they have nudged the morals of this movie, have nudged closer into progressive 60s, like, this is the idea of like, hey, I'd rather you not end up with my fella, but I'm not going to make a big stink about it. We're all adults here. We all get horny.
Yeah.
So Maria handles it pretty well for what she
does.
Seems to be.
She's incredibly reasonable about it. And then they're both helping him to bed, and I like when Xena's like, "Well, whatever, he's your boyfriend. You handle this yourself."
Yeah,
like
exactly.
She starts to do it with her, and then she's like, "You know what? Fuck this. All right, I'm not going to help you. If your boyfriend doesn't want to get with me, then you deal with his drunk ass."
Yeah, and Paul says some like kind of mumbly, adorable, drunk things like, "I'm sorry I screwed up," and she's like, "Don't worry about it. I love you. It'll all work out."
And then they start getting it on.
Mm-hmm.
Because Daddy's still horny, Michael.
The alcohol has unleashed the beast.
Yeah, because this is where he starts undoing her dress, and we see just the hint of her back.
Yep.
And so
not as much of the back abs as you get on the poster. No. I, for one, was thrown.
Yeah.
I was like,
come on, they could have stayed a little longer on that shot.
I was promised back abs by this movie.
Where are the back abs? I saw them realized in painting. I want to see them on film.
Someone actually goes, "Sorry, we don't serve baby back ribs."
That's not what I was asking. That sounds good, though.
Although, to be fair, actually, that does sound
Where are
good.
those?
Yeah.
Where the...
Yeah, you know what? I'll go out and get some ribs. Come back and finish it on the next show.
Sir, Applebee's has not been founded yet.
And that man, Carl Appleby, the founder of
that man was Carl Appleby. For some reason, at a movie theater in Australia in 1968,
he said,
"Where our American friends were vacationing,
I want to make sure no man goes without ribs ever again."
And someone who was also in that movie theater went on to found Outback Steakhouse and thought of the Bloomin' Onion. That was a very important screening of Dracula Has Risen from the Grave.
It gave us two of the most beloved restaurant chains in the world.
The origins of Applebee's and Outback Steakhouse are tied
from this Dracula movie.
And this one guy, one pervy American.
Now that you mention it, the Bloomin' Onion and some baby back ribs sounds really good.
Bloomin' Onion, you say?
Oh, that's really good.
Thank you.
Hey, listeners, write in if you want to hear more of John's Australian accent.
Good on, mate. Nah, that's a knife.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's what I would pay for.
Yeah, that's where... Please, I can do the whole show Australian if people really want.
That's where I retire. But anyway, so they have what we can only assume is very pure drunken sex.
And so, meanwhile, Xena has walked downstairs, and Max, the owner, is just like, "Oh, Xena, you're still here? Why, it's the middle of the night. Are you sure you don't want to stay?" And she's like, "No. A walk would be good for me, and I'll just go out into the night alone."
A walk would be good for me, and besides, it's literally as bright as 3 p.m. out there, so I think I'll be able to find my way home.
This is becoming a runner in the Hammer movies, too, where it's like midday, and it's supposed to be the middle of night, and they don't even do anything.
No, there's a little bit of a blue filter. That's it.
It's not an aggressive blue filter like day for night shots in a lot of other movies.
No, it's way too bright. She is actually seeing things, like she's turning around and looking at things and like, "Oh, look at that over there."
Because we follow her. She's walking home, and she walks past the priest, who's just sort of sitting there in the coach.
Yeah, he's sitting on the in the pilot's chair of the coach or whatever you call it, the driver's chair.
I like the pilot's chair. That's completely wrong, I'm sure, but makes it sound way cooler.
Yeah, but he's just sitting there, and he's actually just like hunched over as if he's like asleep at the wheel.
Because she kind of takes notice of it, and it's like, okay,
that's weird. And then the coach comes roaring to life.
It starts following her initially, and then it loses all sense of chill and just speeds at her, and we get this whole chase scene.
This is weird. This is one of those things where I was like going, maybe it sounded good, maybe it was like awesome on paper, but a coach with horses weaving through trees in a wooded area, and one person on foot.
Yeah,
a person on foot. I mean, yes, horses will overtake you, but not when it's having to slalom through trees.
I did actually think when she took the left into the trees, I thought, that's good, that's smart. That's where you're going to get away from this.
But somehow the priest is able to get this cart just right on her.
Never loses speed. She never gains much distance on it.
And then she, of course, does the trip and fall.
Yeah.
And then
twice. She trips and falls twice during this.
Right. Then
and I did also.
But
initially I thought, why would Dracula want to run a woman down? Like, why is that what he has him doing?
Well, I don't know why any of this was necessary, because essentially what happens is she's like, oh my God, I almost got run over.
Yeah.
And then she walks like 5 feet and he's just, Dracula's standing at a tree.
Yeah, I go, so was the whole point to just drive her to as like, all right, I'll be over here. Now you just terrify the life out of her with the coach and drive
Dracula
her towards
could have
me.
Just been standing at a tree at any point and not needing a cart to chase her.
Yeah.
This is stupid. It's just like the audience needs the thrill.
I think it would have been cool without this chase if she was just walking and suddenly Dracula was there. That's my Dracula. That's the kind of move my Dracula does.
But instead, Dracula is just behind a tree, and she's like, "Oh God, hello, there's someone there."
And this is where I could have used a good evening.
Yep. But instead, he just does the stare, and she is first scared and then immediately feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Hammer goes, you know what? We're going all in on vampires, period, but mostly Dracula, instant sexual arousal.
Yeah.
Because she's like, what do you want? You want some of this? My neck? And she's doing the whole
she's got like a choker on and he tears it off. I like that move.
He tears the choker off. That's pretty badass. And then he even goes for her little cape and sort of pulls it down like, honey, still too much in my way.
Yeah.
And then she's
Clear
like,
that
all right.
neck, baby.
Yeah, here you go. And then he leans in, gets to work.
Definitely. Yeah. He bites her. And we go back then to Maria leaving Paul's by morning light. Hello.
Yep. And here's also where we realize that Hammer no longer has access to its old sets, is that there is no walking in the streets in this movie.
Nope.
They all walk across rooftops.
Yep. It's all about the rooftops. Which, you know what? I do like later when we see Dracula leaping across rooftops. I like that.
I like this in concept, only if it's the only thing we see, because it will happen multiple times. You sit there going, does no one leave by a door and walk through a street?
We're kind of a rooftop city.
It's a cool set that they have clearly built on a soundstage. Yeah. But yeah, she leaves through his window, Paul's window, and she's walking front, and he's like, do you want me to follow you home or get you home? She's like, no, I know the way. And besides, it wouldn't look right.
Yeah. As
if coming in at 6:30 when the sun's coming up, that's going to look wrong no matter how. That is the walk of shame, my friend.
Yeah.
But Maria heads off across the roofs, blows a little kiss, and she's gone. He's like, I am the luckiest man alive.
Meanwhile, we then cut to Xena, who's downstairs looking in the mirror at the vampire puncture marks on her neck, like,
Jesus.
Well, how am I going to cover this up?
Each one of them is the size of half of a Super Bowl.
It is
glued.
And yet she manages to cover it with just another choker, another kind of thin, fabric-y choker, and they're perfectly covered.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing I do like. Another thing I like about this movie is Dracula is expanding. Like, he has thralls, plural now. He has 2 people working for him. She hasn't been turned to a vampire, but she is under his sway. Most of those earlier movies, it's like he bites you, you're done. Or you're a vampire lady immediately and you don't have much to do in the movie. Here, he's using her.
Right.
And that's pretty awesome. Just like he's using the priest. It becomes like
I'm recruiting for my team. Yeah.
And I love that shit.
Yeah. Let's see. I need to post an ad on Indeed.
So everyone in the bar is like, hey, what's her name? Xena, right, of course. They're like, you look kind of off.
Yeah.
You feeling all right? She's like, oh, I'm fine. I just had a long
I'm absolutely fine. And she even has like a tense scene with Paul where she's like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. Get out of here. What are you talking about? I'll see you later.
Well, that's because she hadn't covered up her bites yet. And she's sort of like, I'm fine. And she's got her...
Well, you absolutely just get away from me. There's nothing wrong with my neck. I don't know why you would ever think such a thing. And he's like, okay, whatever.
You do an excellent Xena impression, by the way.
Thank you. Practiced it.
Watch out, Barbara Ewing.
Yeah. I'm coming for this part. They're gonna digitally add me into this movie.
It's been 53 years, but you know what? I can see it.
So she's doing that. Then the priest comes to the place and he's like, "Yes, I need a room." And he's the most suspicious human being on the planet.
I love Thrall Priest because the actor does a fine job, but he is so conspicuous. I mean, he's not from this town.
Ewan Hooper is his name, the actor.
Yeah.
Can I also mention a factoid about him in this movie?
I want it.
His entire part is dubbed. All of his dialogue is dubbed.
Wow, you can tell a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I kept thinking, wow, they are really ADRing a lot. And then, now that I think about it, every single one of his lines.
This guy is Scottish in real life.
And they must have gone, too Scottish.
We don't like that accent. But he's had a very long career. He was in the 2005 film Kinky Boots, which is a delightful British movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he did an episode of Growing Pains in the 90s, apparently.
Oh my God, he was in Uncut Gems. Sorry.
No, but he clearly does a lot of BBC, Wire in the Blood, Doc Martin, that kind of stuff.
Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's continuing to work for quite a while, still alive.
He was in a really good Poirot series as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and he did an Avengers.
Yes.
Which is
he's good. Even though that's not his voice, I think that he
does a lot. I mean, he really does play the priest to Thrall of Dracula to resistance and like self-loathing for being taken over by Dracula. I like this character.
Yeah, the self-torturous kind of thing is accurately done.
We're so used to the Renfields and stuff like that, the sort of cackling madman thralls or whatever, that to see a guy being like, I don't want to be doing any of this, but he's making me
have to.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I'll do anything for him, but apparently take a cross off his castle.
Can't. That cross weighs a ton, man. I don't have the strength in me.
Have you seen the monster?
Dracula.
He works out.
I can't. Dude, my back. I do want an eye-rolling Dracula at some point. Oh, God.
We get a little bit of that. There's a couple of times where he's very disappointed. And,
there's a scene with him and Xena later that I love. It's might be my favorite Dracula scene we've seen, actually, in these movies yet. He's much closer to the Dracula I like in this movie.
Same here.
Yeah.
And not just because he has dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just we get evil. We get evil,
and we get a guy who rules, who's just like, I'm the most powerful man, and I'm the baddest dude there is. What are you gonna do?
Except for the way he's taken out, and we'll talk about it.
I like the way he dies, but the way that he gets into that situation, I very much do not care for.
Well, it can't work. It doesn't work when you think about what the character is capable of, but we'll talk about it when we get.
Yeah. He's like, the priest is like, I need a room. And Max is immediately like, well, we don't really have any rooms. This one's Xena's like, yeah, there's that room next to Paul's. And Max is like, yes, there is that room. But it's such a small room. You'd have no space in there. You don't want that. And he's like, oh, I don't need much.
It's just me and one bag.
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
And I love the way Ripper plays this, where he's like, I really don't want to give this guy a room, but
what's hilarious is while this scene's going on, I'm sitting there going, well, this is odd. I mean, other than the fact that this dude's acting odd and creepy, why isn't he wanting to give him a room? And then he does explain it when he just goes, Xena, having a priest in my cool pub.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, I don't want that shit.
That's bad for business.
That's bad for business. I don't want a man of God living here when all the drunks are downstairs doing their song about you have to keep the beer on the ceiling or whatever the fuck that.
Priests famously don't want beer anywhere near ceilings. Like there's something in the Bible about that.
It's in their oaths that they take, whatever you call that.
I always go with the Simpsons thing about where is that in the Bible? I don't know, somewhere in the back.
Somewhere in the
back. So yeah, and he's like Xena, I don't know why you would want a priest being here, because conceivably you're getting up to all kinds of illicit deeds.
We don't look. We're not here to slut shame.
No,
we're not. But it's clear the way this movie paints her, Xena is in control of her sexuality. She owns it.
She likes a good time.
She likes a good time. And she doesn't seem to be ashamed of it either. Good on her. Neither should she be. She has agency. But at the same time, probably if you were Michael Ripper, if you were Max, you'd be thinking, you probably don't want to be bedding college guys upstairs with a priest right next door.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the thing where he's like, I'm not going to slut shame you, but that dude 100% will.
Totally will. Yeah, but of course, she's also acting equally a little bit dazed and hypnotized. Like, no, it'll be fine. He will be fine up there. And they're all just doing what Dracula wants.
And so Paul takes him upstairs, and the priest is like, yes, I'm here on church business. I need to see the Monsignor. Do you know him and where he is at the moment?
You wouldn't happen to know where he is, would you?
And so he's like, well, yeah, in fact, I know his niece really well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's a whole wink. There's a nudge. That's really over the top.
You know what I'm talking about, Father.
Know her, biblical sense. Sorry, Father, but biblical sense as in naked, as in I know where all the moles are. You know what I'm saying?
And then he does this weird hip thrust that really feels unnecessary then. And even the priest is like, yes, I think I get it.
I do not enjoy those pleasures myself, but I get it, my son.
I understand. And so then Paul leaves.
You had sex with a lady.
Yeah.
What's it like?
Tell me everything. So then it cuts to the priest. He's just sneaking around the place. He ends up downstairs where the bakery is, and then there's a door that's got a bunch of bags of flour in front of it. He moves those bags of flowers, goes into the door, which apparently takes you into the sewers. Yeah, which is where Dracula has stashed his coffin.
I'd say it's more like it seems maybe like it's supposed to be a fruit cellar. I mean, it's not sewers. You don't see running water or anything.
You do in the background, though. Like, it's big. Like, you walk in, everything's dripping. You go down the stairs. There's where Dracula is. And then behind him, it looks like sewers.
I didn't get the sewer impression. I knew it was supposed to be a dank cellar-ish kind of thing. And Dracula wouldn't want running water anywhere near him. We've had this conversation.
That's right. We do establish that. Well, what did I see then?
I think you just saw wet walls. It is supposed to be like a drippy cellar.
I'm trying to find a picture of it, but there's no way to track this down. I'm just hoping to find. Anyway, we can keep going. But
Drippy Cellar will be the name of my solo album, so keep an eye out for.
In the Drippy Cellar. That's the title track from it.
It's really good. Speaking of a musical episode,
we can't stop singing this week.
We can't. Got a song in our hearts.
We said it when this show started. We got a song. But
that is where Dracula's now hiding out.
Dracula's hiding out. In his
borrowed coffin.
Yeah, in this drippy cellar, whatever this place is, that apparently they don't use a lot because there's nothing in there, and it's been boarded up by these bags, basically.
Yeah, the priest, every time he goes down, has to move these bags.
I love that you
flowers.
see multiple people, because Xena does it too when she goes down there. Every time they go down there, you see somebody moving bags. I love it. It's so cumbersome.
Oh god, Dracula needs to see me. Hold on, here we go again.
Yeah, hang on, I gotta limber up before I see the boss.
God.
Yeah. So, yeah, he goes down there. And he's Dracula's standing there, and we get a good fang bearing from Dracula, like, you know what's up. I'm gonna cause some shit in this town.
Yeah. Actual dialogue from the scene, right?
Mm-hmm. And then the priest goes upstairs where it's the rowdy pub, and Xena's working, and he just sort of appears to, and Xena looks at him. He kind of gives a nod, like, boss wants to see you. And so she asked Paul to take over for her. Says she's not feeling well. He's like, that's what I said. I said you didn't look like you were well.
Yeah, it's like, I've been, vindicated when I said you didn't look well.
I love their little banter here because it feels like 1800s Cheers for half a second.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all like, oh, how you doing, Norm?
Oh man, it's you got Ratzenberger there going, hey, Sammy there, how about a beer?
Oh, you finally got to do your Ratzenberger.
That's
too.
all. I've been from day one. I've been waiting to do the really. I'd rather be back at the bar having a beer with Norm.
John, can I finally mark that off the list because you've had this running? Can I just put that off? You finally got to do. There we go.
Take the Ratzenberger.
Cliff Clavin.
Yeah,
Cliff Clavin is off the list. Okay, good. Moving on.
I'm actually doing him as the. My voice is that when he's the missile operator in Superman the movie.
Yes.
Hey, something's wrong with this missile here.
Not as Boston. That's true.
Yeah. So Xena then has to move the bags of flour to get down to see Dracula. And she goes downstairs, and Dracula says, the girl, the niece of the Monsignor. And she's like, yeah, Maria, I know her. It's like, bring her to me.
Yeah.
Great stuff, man. All I want is Dracula saying things like, bring her to me.
Yes.
And she's like, I understand why you'd want her. I'm right here, Dracula, and I got the goods. Like,
and I like this too, where she's like going, hey, I mean, I know you're using me as like a juice box, but I got feelings too.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, aren't I enough for you? And he's like, no.
What does he do? He backhands her, sends her to the ground, and then emphatically says again, bring her to me.
Yeah.
Dracula doesn't give a shit. It's all about Dracula's plan. I don't care what your feelings are. I said bring that girl to me. I don't want any sass back.
He's not a nice guy.
And
I like when Dracula's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
Every now and then I like romantic, sad Dracula, like I have crossed oceans of time for you kind of Dracula, but I also love
I live for that line of dialogue, by the way. I just love that.
Sure, it is
time to be with you.
Yeah, it's nice. But I also like a Dracula that fucking backhands his followers and says, bring her to me.
We love that moment, and I think it was Prince of Darkness, where that woman goes to, like, comfort him, and he's just like, get the fuck off of me.
Yeah.
I do love those moments. And Lee is good at those. Lee is good at just being bastard Dracula.
Imperious.
Yeah. I don't need your fucking comfort,
asshole.
lady. Yeah.
I like a Dracula
It's
asshole.
all about my mission is to fuck over this guy who ruined my house. I don't care what you're doing, lady. I'm going to turn his niece into a vampire. That's going to show him.
You know what it makes me feel better about is that one time I went to Dracula's castle and I thought that one of the chairs would look cooler like over here. I'm glad I fought that impulse.
Yeah.
Because if you mess with his house, he'll fucking come for you. I am really glad I did not move that chair.
Look, I let a lot of things slide, but you do not mess with my pad.
Who displaced my throw pillows?
This room had a perfect feng shui to it.
That rug really tied the room together.
It's Big Lebowski
Dracula crossover.
But it's just Dracula. It's just the plot of that movie, but instead of the dude, it's Dracula.
Oh my God! I'm writing it as soon as we finish.
You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole.
Let's wrap it up.
Well, that's just like your...
Just like your opinion, man.
I was trying to think of the line while I was doing it, and I blanked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just like your opinion, man.
Careful, man. We're dealing with a beverage here. Instead of
well, that and my Credence tapes.
Oh my God!
He says everything with the same inflection, apparently, too.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is? I'm realizing my Christopher Lee impression is just knick-knack, Tabasco.
It's the best thing.
It is.
Knick-knack, Tabasco.
The best opening line of not just any Bond film, but of any film. And I've said that before.
Complete agreement.
Knick-knack, Tabasco.
Knick-knack, Tabasco. What else? I mean, what better way to start a movie?
You cannot follow up.
No, that's the problem with it. You set that early. That movie can't live up to that opening line.
You know what? Let's just stop here.
We could stop it. That's good. That's the best part of the movie. So
I'm coming. I'm bringing you the Tabasco. Here it comes.
So
I'm very sorry, boss. I have brought you the Tabasco.
There we go. You and I are going to go on the road, by the way, doing Christopher Lee and Hervé Villachez.
Do you need any other kind of condiments?
You'd think it's a Montalban Villachez show. No, it's a Lee Villachez show. So
perhaps you would like some tapatio? I have sriracha. Also, the sriracha for you.
I said Tabasco. So Xena goes back upstairs, and she's just like, yeah, no, I'm all fine now, Paul, so you can stop doing that. Hey, for no reason at all, out of complete curiosity, is Maria coming tonight to the bar by any chance? Nothing nefarious happening. And he's like, yeah.
Some thought just popped into my head. By any chance, do you think maybe...
Yeah, so he's like, yeah, I think she is coming. He goes, well, she says, that's great. You can go upstairs and study like I know you want to. I'll let you know if she shows up. He's like, oh, that's great. Thanks, Xena. And he goes upstairs, and immediately after he leaves this room, Maria arrives in the bar.
Yep.
And she's Xena says, oh, yeah, Maria, Paul was looking for you. He's downstairs in the bakery. She's like, oh, great. So she goes down there. And using an empty flour bag, she's down there looking for Paul. Xena just puts this bag over her head and takes her down into the drippy cellar and just, I mean, I do like her just throwing her in front of Dracula.
All right. Yeah. Here's another thing.
Bags are good.
Yeah. This doesn't work. I do like the whole, like, just throw her down in the cellar with Dracula, but this is one of the least convincing help I'm being abducted things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because, all right, Xena, she may be stronger than Maria. In fact, I would buy that.
She's lifting those trays and stuff every night. Yeah, sure.
But all she does is put a bag over Maria's head, and Maria suddenly can't really even fight back. There are even times where Maria could have lifted her own hands and taken the bag off.
Yeah.
But instead, it's this weak struggle of like, no.
It's what happens whenever anyone throws like a pillow or a towel at Frank Drebin in Naked Gun. He's just like, oh!
Yeah. Yes. You would imagine that she would struggle. And so maybe if you were the director and you're like going, yeah, that doesn't work. Let's just cut really quickly to need to see you downstairs and then her throwing her through a door. The rest of the shit you don't need. Plus, also, when Maria does escape and come back up, she's like, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, Xena was right behind you, and suddenly a bag came over your head.
No idea.
I'm like, oh my God.
But yeah, I do like, so she pushes her down on the ground, and suddenly she's just looking up at Dracula. And this is where I could have used just a hello or something. Anything from him. Instead, he just stares at her as you would expect. At her,
and she's frightened. And then she's like, but I kind of like this, because they all do when Dracula does his hypno glance.
Exactly. And he's moving in on her, being all Dracula-like. And then this I don't like as a Dracula scene, because he hears upstairs Paul calling for Maria, and Dracula does it like, oh shit, they're on to me, and books it out of there.
Yes.
I don't like Dracula being afraid of some guy. If Dracula is intimidated by Van Helsing, I'm okay with that. But just a guy yelling for his girlfriend, and Dracula's like, fuck, all right, I gotta go.
In my life, I could use less scenes of Dracula ducking away from people as if he's terrified.
Yeah,
I don't.
A scampering Dracula is not my favorite Dracula. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
If you approach,
Quick, I gotta get out of here, like right now.
Even if you're walking right at him with a crucifix, I expect him to stand his ground and look, you know, like you are really pissing me off. But not like, ah!
Yeah, I don't want him like, and like I said, the only person I'm even willing to see him be somewhat intimidated by is Van Helsing. And even still, it's not a cowering, but it's more of a like, well, I'm a little off my game around this guy, you know.
Yeah.
But he's still going to put up a front at the very least. Yeah, I never like any time. Oh my, it pales though in comparison to my problem with Dracula's reaction at the end of this movie.
We'll get there.
We'll get there because it's bad. So because people in the bar said, oh yeah, we saw Maria, she was here, and Paul's like, really, where?
She totally came in and was looking for you, and and this now becomes 18 minutes of screen time where Paul goes, really, she came in? They're like, yeah, she's
so he goes downstairs and he goes, well, she's not down, and then he comes back upstairs. He's like, she's
not down there. And they're like, we saw her, dude. I mean, maybe she went upstairs, but we didn't see that.
The pitch perfect structure of an Anthony Hines script.
And the unbelievable cinematic pacing of our friend Freddie.
I mean, these
Fisher.
two, what a dream team! You know, you've really got
Freddie Francis.
Yeah. Just a crackling yarn when you have these two.
So yeah, you do see Paul at least 2 or 3 times going, "Hello, Maria, are you done?" Apparently, no. She's not down here.
Yeah. And then he does when he goes back downstairs. She is now in the bakery, terrified. He's like, "What happened?" And she's like, "I don't know what happened. I don't, you know."
I only assume they're implying that Dracula, even though he had to do a quick duck, had done some sort of like memory fogging thing. It's always like, hey,
he's scamper. He just throws, I don't remember anything.
You don't see me.
Yeah. I
wasn't here.
Was never here. Tabasco.
Gina totally didn't put a bag over your head.
And Gina, while you're at it, Gina, while you're at it, bring me down a bottle of Tabasco.
Gina, Tabasco.
You know what? He's hanging out in the basement of a pub in this movie. Come on, it was right there.
I don't drink the alcohol. What exactly is it? Is it like a Bloody Mary? Is that why you have Tabasco?
That would exactly be it.
A Bloody Mary. Yeah. Probably the drink of choice of our vampire lord.
I tell you, once I went into a pub, ordered a Bloody Mary. I was unpleasantly surprised by what they gave me.
Yes.
Vodka and tomato juice.
I could have had a V8.
I want Dracula doing, I should have had a V8.
You know, I wouldn't put it past like ad campaigns of the 70s.
To have done this?
Christopher Lee must have done like commercials for American Express or something. It was like,
oh, God, yeah.
People always recognize me, and you see people running in fear, or whatever. And I'm sure there were plenty of corny tie-in, like, I don't know why people are so intimidated by me, and he has fangs or something.
Yeah, there must have been something like that, because there's I can't imagine him saying no to something like that.
No.
What's this? A half day's work? Sure.
Sadly, as much as we both love Christopher Lee and Mr. Cushing, they still had to struggle, even with international cult, celebrity. They would occasionally get great parts and things, but they did so much shit and schlock.
Most of my favorite actors had careers like that, because I love a Vincent Price. But same thing, right? Just like beloved to a certain subsection of people. But
I would mention Peter Weller, like a later day where it's like, I love everything that man has done, but why haven't we seen him in more good things? Why did he have to do so many direct-to-video and cable nonsense.
I don't understand, because Peter Weller is a great actor. Like,
great actor. Love that guy.
I mean, how does RoboCop and Buckaroo Banzai, how do you star in both of those movies and not just work forever?
I don't even understand.
Things of quality.
And then you get like a Naked Lunch years later, and you're like, as if you had to remind people how awesome Peter Weller was. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah. I mean, I was thrilled when he showed up in that Star Trek movie. Absolutely. I was just like, oh my God.
Except for I didn't like the character or the storyline, but it was good to see him. Tune into our Weller cast, and we'll discuss at greater length how much we love Peter Weller.
He's the best. Then this is the best scene, when Dracula's talking to Xena, and he's like, I'm very disappointed. You must be punished. And she again says, I don't know what you're looking for this blonde lady for. You got me right here, a grade A hottie. She's still disappointed. Yeah, she just doesn't get why Drac is like, you got the gold right here, Drac.
But this time he is not assuaged.
No,
by her charms.
And we get the close up on the bloodshot eyes again, and she's looking at them, and there's a beat, and then she just screams, and we cut away.
What's great, I mean, she plays it really well here. Like I said, she got more to do than you expect from this type of part. Here, she gets within a few seconds to go from right, because I'm totally worshiping you. I'm the one you want. And then you can see it in her eyes. She goes, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't about me becoming like him or being chosen. He's just done with me. Yeah. And then she screams. And it's really good.
It's really good. And then we cut back to a little scene with Paul and Max talking about, like, well, whatever happened, something gave her a fright down there. She probably imagined whatever, made her scared. People, mind plays tricks on people.
Because, women.
Yeah, crazy women. Then it cuts to, I love this scene, where the priest goes back down to Dracula's lair, and he just sees Dracula in the coffin with blood all over his mouth. And almost a smile with the fangs. This is like, I had some blood. I'm feeling good. And then he looks over, and there's just Xena dead on the ground. Her eyes like wide. She's got her fangs out, but she is dead. And
what's really cool about that is that she hasn't had fangs until that moment. So weirdly, what they're implying is when Dracula totally drains you, you're on your way to becoming a vampire. But Dracula also doesn't want her to have that. So he basically, without moving, I thought that was actually a good directorial choice, is that he's still just in the background laying in the coffin, and the priest is in the foreground looking down at dead Xena, and you just hear Dracula go, get rid of her.
Oh no, even better, he says, destroy her.
Destroy her.
And and we don't even see, and then the priest looks back and we see him just sort of eyes open, his head slightly up to talk to him, but he's just laying in the coffin, and he says it again, destroy her. And I was like, fuck, yeah, that's my Dracula. That's the Dracula I want to see.
Indeedy do. And then, wait, is it an immediate cut to the oven?
Yeah.
Because that's it's grim, but it's also very effective, where it's just the priest clearly is disgusted, terrified, doesn't want to do this, but he opens up like whatever the oven downstairs, the industrial size thing, and he's just shoving her head towards it.
This is a great, once again, we talked about the fact he's dubbed, but this is a great bit of just visual acting from this guy.
Yep.
Just his whole like, I have to, but I don't want to, but I have to put this woman in the fire. Like, and it's really good. And he does put her in the fire. So,
and you guys, if you are only watching for Barbara Ewing, go ahead and turn the movie off.
Yeah. All you Ewing heads out there.
All you Ewing heads, you Xena fans.
Yeah.
And I know you're plentiful, and you're still watching this movie going, when does Gabrielle show up? And I'm sorry, she will not.
Huge bummer on that. I kept waiting. Kept waiting.
She gets tossed in the fire, and she's done for the movie. And then you get Max later on going, I don't know, she probably hooked up with somebody, and she'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. She does this. She ran off with some guy for a while, but she'll get tired of that and come running back. So meanwhile, we cut back to Maria shows up at home, and it's, the crack of dawn or whatever. And this time, Anna catches her and is like, Where the hell were you?
Oops.
Yeah, but she doesn't get a chance to say anything because Maria immediately passes out, and now Anna is terrified and calling for the Monsignor.
Yep. And the Monsignor comes up, is like, well, I'm sure she's fine. And then he looks over, looks at her neck, sees her bite marks, because Dracula, he got a little taste.
He hasn't done that yet, because he doesn't bite her there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've conflated.
Yeah. Because Ernst instead checks on her, and she's like, oh, I'm just tired. And he says, you know what?
Right.
I've thought about it. And that Paul guy, he does really like you, and you really like him. So I'm willing to look past his blasphemy.
See, the Monsignor is a cool guy.
He is. And then when he leaves, though, that's when she goes over to the window.
Right.
And Dracula's there. He's just there.
Yeah, she basically he's just there. And she's like, all right, let's get this thing going.
Yeah. And this is a really interesting scene, the way that Lee sort of like walks her to the bed. She lays down, and Lee does this thing where he rubs his face on her face. It's a weird sort of animal kind of thing.
He's kind of doing the rubbing, but it's also, he's like planting small kisses like on her forehead and on her cheek, and so it's weirdly animal, also weirdly sweetly romantic.
Yeah,
he's going for the goods.
Yeah, and it's just this Dracula seduction scene that I like. It's weird and off-putting.
And what's even more off-putting is the really blatant symbolism we get in about 5 seconds.
When she grabs the doll that's on her bed, she clutches the arm of the doll and then lets it go, and the doll falls to the ground.
They're implying that he's moving in. He's about to get busy, either draining her or doing her. But what they can't
it's Dracula.
show you is that.
Why not both?
Why not both? But instead, they cut to her hand gripping like her childhood doll that's on the bed, and then kind of weirdly shoving it towards the corner and letting it drop.
Yeah.
Which means, hey, I think her innocence is gone.
Oh, is that how you interpret?
Yeah. Thank you, Freddie Francis.
Yeah.
Wait, John, you didn't read my college paper on this? This was my thesis.
The thesis just about this one shot from Dracula.
Sexual symbolism in Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, 1968, Hammer Films.
Yeah. Well, and it's so subtle. That's the thing that's amazing about this movie. That I can't believe
I went to a community college, but still I got credit. So shut up.
Yeah. So he bites her, and we have all that. Then it's the next morning. Then it's the next morning that the Monsignor finds the bite marks, because they're like, oh no, she's
clearly still. Yeah, it's like she's still sick. Oh no. And Monsignor's like, I'm sure she's fine, but then he sees the bite marks, and he does not show them to Anna, does not worry her.
No, he goes, no, yes, I'm sure she'll be fine. Yep.
Go read up on vampire.
Yeah, he immediately hits the books. He immediately hits the vampire books. Yeah. And he's just so we get a vampire studying scene.
Yeah, study sesh.
Yeah. And let's see. Oh yeah, so then he's studying that, and we then go, it's night again, and Maria once again has gone to the window because Dracula's back. It's a little time with the Count for her, and so he comes in, and
she is, and I can only assume, they playing fast and loose with vampire lore. It's like, I guess that she has been the one to invite him in, but this is night 2, and she's like, I want more of what you were doing. I already went ahead and put the doll off the bed, so don't worry about that shit. Let's just get busy. And she does. She is the one that opens the thing, and then she sits on the bed. She opens her own gown. She's like, I want this. Let's go. And he's like, yes.
And just before he bites her, though, Monsignor comes in, and he's got a cross in his hand. And Dracula's like, oh, Dracula, don't do that shit.
he is not going to allow himself to be cock-blocked.
No.
Yet he still runs out like a scared little girl.
But he crashes through a window this time and leaps over a balcony. So at least it's a little cooler than him just scampering. And we get a classic Dracula like rearing back, hissing at the cross, and then out the glass, over the balcony, onto the rooftops.
But then we get like a rooftop chase for a hot second.
Kind of all I can think as fast as the Monsignor can chase anyone.
This will be something I'll bring up at the end too. It's like Dracula still physically as a person running across roofs.
Well, I really like
Dracula has other ways to travel, and this bugs me. Bat?
Yeah, Bat comes to mind. What I love though is the Monsignor's following him, and he can't find out where he goes. And then finally, at some point, he looks across the rooftop, and Dracula is now just in a casual walk.
Yeah,
like he ran out and ran across the rooftops, and then a ways down some rooftops, there's Dracula's being like, "Well, I guess I got away, so I'll just sort of casually."
Then it's just like a head and shoulders shot where it's just like, "Oh, I see him right over there. Yeah. There he is."
But before
it's spotting him in a busy grocery store. You're like, "Oh no, there he is, right over there."
But before he can make a move to get to him, he's clobbered over the head with one of these roof tiles by the priest.
Because the priest has apparently been hanging out on the roofs. Like, my master
he's
might
like
need
behind
me to
a chimney, and he's hiding himself, and he comes around and breaks this, clay, whatever tile, was ceramic tile, it looks like, over his head. And
does the Monsignor see him at this point? At some point,
he does in a blurry vision after he's been hit, and there's all the blood on his head, and he's like, "You." Yeah. I think he goes like, "You."
Yeah.
And I love the shot later when Anna is comforting Maria, and the bloody, dazed Monsignor starts crawling up in the body. He's like, and they're just screaming. He's like, "Somebody hit me." It's bad, isn't it?
Milk was a bad idea.
It is almost like you could tell me it looks bad, doesn't it?
It looks bad.
Yes, he does stagger in, and they don't make explicitly clear, but this is really a fatal blow, but it's going to take him a while to actually die. But they bring him in, lay him down, and he calls for Paul. He needs to talk to the young man.
Yes. He's like, get Paul over here. Get him over here now, because time is of the essence. I'm dying here. I know I'm going.
Yeah. And he's the only one who can finish this thing.
Yeah.
And
he'll do anything for her because he loves her.
Yes.
I would do it. No,
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Meatloaf. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Ooh, what? I won't fight Dracula.
I won't fight Dracula. Seriously? Have you seen that guy?
Yeah. I may be a bat out of hell, but I don't fuck around with vampires.
Oh my god. Man, I didn't think we could reference Meatloaf today. Thank you so much.
That's what this show is for.
John Ratzenberger and Meatloaf, which actually sounds like a delicious meal. I'll have the John Ratzenberger with the meatloaf.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious. Ratzenberger and meatloaf.
So yeah, they bring Paul to him, and he says, here's what you need to know. Dracula, totally alive. And look, there's some ways you can take him out though. Read this book. Now it is in Latin.
He goes, I know you're really well educated. That's good. You're going to need it. Read this book. It's in Latin. It'll tell you all you need to know. I don't think Paul can read Latin because he has to go find the priest.
He does have to go find the priest, who unfortunately, the thing that he didn't tell him in that information is the priest is the one who killed him.
Yeah, that seemed to be something I would have laid out.
Yeah, because he's like, hey, I trust you. Can you come help me fight Dracula? And the priest is like, sure.
Absolutely. I will say it flatly. Absolutely. The priest is reading out of the book in Maria's bedroom, telling him where to put the garlic, how to do this, how to protect Maria from the vampire. Which of course that's pretty ironic because he's gonna do his best to let Dracula have his way later anyway.
Yes. And so because I just start to go, okay, well, we've initially when the scene started, I thought we've seen him kind of not be cool with all this. Is this the point where he's like, this is my chance, I'm gonna fuck over Dracula? Like
not really.
It's not. No. But
Instead,
he does everything. He puts the garlic with him. He puts the cross on her. He lets him do all that stuff.
And as soon as that happens, he picks up a candlestick and whacks Roger Daltrey on the head.
Boy, this guy, it's nothing but blunt force trauma with this guy.
Yeah. Which leaves Paul blind, deaf, and dumb.
Yeah.
But he becomes an amazing pinball wizard.
Sure plays a mean pinball, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm sorry, but he does. He clobbers Paul. Paul's out for the count, and
at least for a little while because he actually wakes up pretty quickly in the scene. But
he does. He wakes up pretty quickly.
So he clobbers him. Then he breaks open the window again that Dracula. They'd put boards where Dracula jumped out, and he's breaking open the window, and then he goes to grab the cross off of Maria, and that's where he starts to run into some trouble. He's like, I should, but I can't, but I should, but I can't. I don't know. What am I gonna do? He's really struggling here.
Did you dub his voice? Were you?
I should, but I can't. I'm the priest.
I want to, but I can't.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't, but I will. But I don't want.
Yeah. Don't you remember all those lines where he's like, "Hey, Dracula, what are we
Why are you so mean all the time?
Oh, you have to hit that nice lady, Dracula. I didn't like that.
Why did I have to put the lady in the oven? How long do I leave her in there for?
Are we going for well done or just a nice golden braise on it?
She's in there like 550. I wouldn't leave her in there long.
She's gonna burn. Oh, she's supposed to burn? I have completely misunderstood the situation.
Am I supposed to be searing her? Oh, okay.
I put her on a broiling sheet, I'm telling you.
Oh no, that was not a non-stick. I should have used Pam.
Oh, this is gonna take forever to clean this. It just turns into a commercial. I should have used Pam. Yes, you should have.
Everyone knows you use Pam for all of your non-stick cooking.
This is Christopher Lee for Pam cooking spray.
This hammer gig won't last for long, so I'm taking money where I can.
Anyway,
hang on. They get.
You lost your place.
Paul wakes up and immediately grabs the priest, and he's shoving the cross in his face, going like, "You tell me where he is and what he's doing." Which I actually thought, you know what, for a Hammer hero, this is one of the more intense, cool moments. For usually these guys are pretty boring. This guy is kind of badass right here.
They have gone for, we want our lead to actually be aggressively awesome and attractive and not a wimpy, pasty British guy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this is a British guy.
And so he's waving this cross and going, "Take me to him."
And he does.
They cut right to, they're at Dracula's coffin, and he's got a big old steak. Paul does. And they're opening it, and the priest is like, "Yeah, do it. Stake him good."
Yeah, you're gonna have to do it soon though, quick,
because he's gonna wake up.
He stakes Dracula,
puts that big old stake right in his chest, and
we get some good gouts of blood.
Oh, the blood that starts pouring out of there. Christopher Lee's screaming. I'm loving this, but I'm also thinking, isn't this the end of the movie? How is there still 15 minutes?
I was like, there's 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
What?
They shouldn't be.
So he stakes Dracula, and Dracula's like going, "Ah!" And then the priest is going, "This makes no sense."
Yeah, where did this come from? This has never been the case in any of the other movies.
But the priest says, "Now you have to pray."
Yeah,
that's the only way to finish the job is you have to pray. And Paul goes, I can't. I don't believe in that shit.
Yeah. I don't remember Van Helsing praying after he staked somebody. He'd just
Unless
stake
he did
him
it
and be out of there.
silently.
Yeah.
Maybe he did it silently.
I just did it in my head.
But essentially, Paul says, I can't do that. And Dracula just reaches up, pulls the stake out of his own fucking chest. This was the scene where his birthday party happened, by the way, on set. But he pulls the stake out.
Here's the missed opportunity. They should have killed the priest right here when he throws the stake back. It should have gone into the priest.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Except for you would have lost his redemption arc.
But well, yes.
It would have been a minor redemption arc.
Here's what I actually thought was going to happen, because later that mute kid takes him up the mountain. I thought the mute kid was going to finally speak again, and he was going to be the one who says the prayer that killed Dracula.
Oh, nice.
That was the arc I had in mind.
Could have been good.
Yeah. So that would have killed the priest here, and then that would have been. I just want because he so dramatically lifts the stake, and I thought he's going to javelin this into somebody. No,
instead he just kind of throws it and it bounces off something
and hits the wall, and it's like, oh man, I wanted to see Dracula. What if we had just had a random bakery worker come down going, Paul, I need to check on those biscuits. Oh no!
Pins him to the door. But I will say also, this pissed me off. Are Dracula's clothes magical? Because
that also heals.
Yeah, because he immediately is on the attack. Like he's coming at Paul. He's like,
well, I like the chase when Paul throws the candle on him and he catches fire a little bit. That was cool. I like seeing Dracula on fire.
Well, actually, Paul, it's a shovel full of burning coal.
That's what it is. It's coal. But you see the cape catch fire and his hair catch fire.
And his hair. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But all I could think was, I was looking at his chest. There's no blood. There's no hole in the cloth. I was like, you just got a wooden stake the size of, I don't know. It was bigger than a table leg through your chest, and there's no damage whatsoever.
Yeah. You know, the other thing would have been cool if he was still chasing him with the stake in him.
Yeah.
That would have been pretty badass.
Yeah.
I thought the initial thing was, it wasn't going to be the prayer. I thought he had missed the heart.
Yeah, sure. Could have been.
Like that's
but
that,
no,
but then they said the thing about the prayer, and I'm like, what is this bullshit? Because I guarantee you, when we get back in the next movie, they'll be staking people without prayers.
But this was just to play off the atheist angle. We have to pay that off.
Yeah, it's more genius screenwriting from Anthony Hines,
and it's more Christian propaganda. But anyway,
yes, come for the vampires. Stay for the lesson about Christianity. Stay for the story.
Now, we hope you enjoyed the film. Does anyone want to come up and witness? Anyone want to bear witness? We're baptizing up at the front of the theater. Come on.
That's why we had this premiere near a lake.
Oh, jeez.
So, yes, Dracula he does that. Then Dracula's back out on the rooftops, though, because it's time to meet up with Maria.
And you know what? Fuck streets.
Yeah.
Fuck streets and street level people.
Well, I guess he just gives up on chasing Paul at a certain point and goes, I better get back up to the roof. Because, he
gets up there. He gets Maria.
Maria comes out to him. Paul rushes in here, though, and he's like, I don't think so. And I do love when Dracula grabs him by the neck and lifts him up.
Yeah.
That's good Dracula. That's good Dracula.
I'll have seconds of that, please.
And he throws him down the roof, but he
arm lift of him. That's really great.
Yeah, I love it. And he lets him go, and he rolls down the roof, but he doesn't go over because he hits a chimney and is stuck there. But now with Maria on his arm, having thrown Paul, he goes, now my revenge is complete.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is spooky as fuck, and it's great.
Yeah. That dude's dead. I've got his niece. Revenge complete, my friends.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go home.
You saw that she knocked that doll off.
Yeah.
I think you know that I got his niece.
Yeah. I know her in the biblical sense, knick-knack.
I see. That's very good. It's very good.
Man.
Do I get it? Do I get my chance? Can I?
Why can't they re-team those two in one of these Dracula movies? If his sidekick was Hervé Villachet?
Oh my God. How great would that have been?
That would have been amazing.
The master wants to see you. I cannot drive the cart, master. It's too big.
The cart, he would do.
R.I.P. Hervé Villechaize. You brought much joy to my young life. Moving on. All right.
Yes. So Paul then rushes to Max and says, look, Dracula's got my gal. Can you give me a horse? Because I got to chase after him. Because Paul knows where Castle Dracula is. I guess he knows the town it's in because he needs somebody to take him there. But
Kleinenberg.
Yeah. So he chases. We have dramatic footage of Paul riding a horse really fast.
Yeah, I could use a lot less carts and horses in this movie, but here's another. Let's whip that horse, and it's not being whipped, but it's just like he's working that horse hard.
Yeah,
he's riding fast.
I'm still feeling for the horse, is what's important. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So he takes off. He gets to the town, and he goes to that same pub that the Monsignor was in at the beginning. He's like, quick, does anyone know how to get to Castle Dracula? And one of the guys just goes, Dracula? He's dead.
Yep.
And he's like, no, he's not. He's still alive, and he's on his way back here.
He's still alive, and yes, the shadow of his castle spreads death and evil on your church.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I love that everybody just freaks the fuck out right now. And they're like, oh, not again! Haven't we had enough, Dracula?
But there's one person in the corner going,
Yeah. And which apparently means, I know where the castle is, and I'll take you there.
Exactly. And that's our friend the altar boy.
Yeah. But, we got to have one more conflict before we get to the final confrontation, which is they board up the door, and they're like, nobody's going anywhere. Cool.
Yeah. This adds nothing.
This is so unnecessary. And they're going to, they're holding Paul down and get him one of the rooms so he can calm down, and he kicks them off of him and takes the board out of the door, grabs the altar boy, and they take off. And it's just like, did we need another little beat of conflict in here?
It was a thrilling 2.5 minutes of screen time, and I think that's what this film will be remembered for.
So Dracula, meanwhile, rides the coach to the base of the mountain, then picks up Maria and carries her the rest of the way up the mountain to Castle Dracula, which is here where he says, remove that cross.
Again, I'm sorry. We're getting to the end here, and things are just falling apart. As awesome as Christopher Lee is here, I'm just like, you couldn't have the priest do that 2 weeks ago or whatever when this first happened. Jeez.
And the way she grabs this cross and she's struggling with it, it's heavy, and it falls over the balcony or whatever, the railing, and of course embeds itself in the ground. And the second I see that, I'm going, he will be impaled on that cross.
Yes,
it's a total setup for an impaling. I've seen enough movies.
The filmmaker has not just telegraphed it. He actually walked it to your house, knocked on the door, waited, and you came, you answered, and then he basically had charts, and he showed you all the, here are the thumbnails. This is how it's going to go.
Yeah,
it is so given to you. Yes, the enormously heavy cross tumbles over the rocks and then spears itself properly into the ground. And you're like,
let me say, I'm on board for killing Dracula by impaling him on a cross. That's a cool way for him to go out.
It's a very cool way for him to go out. But I have a big problem with how this happens.
Yeah.
And
now, can I say this? I would much rather Peter Cushing rammed him through the chest with said cross.
Yep. That actually would avoid the problem that I have, which we'll talk about. I will say Veronica Carlson is in one of the first truly diaphanous nightgowns, and they have the wind machine going.
Yeah.
This whole, it's not shot very well, but it certainly comes across like pure gothic imagery.
Yes.
I do enjoy the whipping blonde hair and the nightgown as she wrestles a huge golden cross off a castle door. I'm okay, I know that's cheesy, but that's a paperback cover and I love it.
It is. So Paul rolls up and he starts scuffling with Dracula.
He rolls up. He turns the engine off. He gets out of the car.
You hear like a, and Dracula's like, "What is this?"
Oh my god!
Shuts the door. You can still hear the engine idling. I didn't bother to shut the key off. I'm gonna take care of you, Dracula, and we're right back in the car and on our way down the mountain. So they scuffle. Dracula does not do well in this fight, which bums me out. And then eventually goes over this railing with like a whoa! Like there is a real close-up shot of Dracula going whoa, whoa, whoa! Like similar to him skittering on that ice. I'm like, God damn it!
Yep.
Why can't he go down swinging? I mean, he did when he fought Cushing.
Here's my problem: characters who can canonically fly.
Which, to be fair, can he fly in the Hammer movies? Has he flown? I think their Dracula doesn't fly.
Well,
which is a bummer. The problem he should.
Well, the problem is that Brides of Dracula is part of the series.
Yes.
It's connected.
Yeah.
Brides of Dracula has them turning into bats.
Right. And why wouldn't
it's true? Yeah. Christopher Lee's Dracula has not in these films turned into mist or a bat, but we know the character fucking can.
Yeah.
So he should not be able to fall.
Yeah.
Superman cannot trip and fall. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. If he did, I'd be upset.
So Dracula tumbling off a small cliff and impaling on a cross made me very angry. And, of course, the close-up shot that you're mentioning of him going, whoa, no! Hated it.
Hashtag not my Dracula.
It's still a cool way for Dracula to die, and
it is. And when he's crying blood after being impaled, that's all cool stuff. I like it.
Yeah, but they drag this out too, where it's like, okay, we get it, but they keep coming back to him kind of weakly, like his hands come up, like, oh, I gotta pull myself off, or he keeps reaching for the edge of the point that's coming out of his chest, like, maybe I can, and it goes on for way too long. Meanwhile, Paul and Maria are hugging, and she's like vaguely sort of coming out of it like, I'm so ashamed of the fact that I totally wanted to dick down on that vampire lord again. But he's hugging her like all is forgiven, and then they look back down.
Yeah.
And then it's just the bloody cross with the cape because he has disintegrated.
Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the movie.
Oh, we should mention that the priest is also there.
Yeah, the priest shows up because Dracula's impaled on the cross, but he's not dead, so he's just sort of like, once again, this is where he's crying blood, and it's cool, and blood's pouring out of him and stuff like that. But it's the priest who has to say the final prayer that disintegrates him, I guess.
And you can assume that maybe Paul has come to a realization of that atheism is not for him. It's not. It's just implied.
Yeah.
But he hugs his gal as the sun comes up. The end.
And that's the end of the movie. Once again, a lot of cool concept things, a lot of things that sound cool on paper. You know,
and some cool scenes and some cool Christopher Lee.
I mean, it's an improvement. I think it's better than Prince of Darkness.
Yep, it's an improvement, but it took steps backwards all along the way.
It's not as good as the first one, though.
No, it's not.
Because I really am feeling the lack of Cushing. Like, we
Me
just
too.
don't have the compelling hero vampire hunter.
We need more Cushing for the pushing. Hello! And I think next week might help us with that.
Oh, it definitely does, because if Dracula has risen from the grave, then people have realized something very important, which is Frankenstein must be destroyed.
We are getting so many news reports.
Yeah.
This just in, Frankenstein must be destroyed.
Says government.
Says government.
Yes, Frankenstein must be destroyed is next week's film. We're back to Frankenstein.
It's kind of a batshit crazy one, too.
Yes, I do remember this one pretty well.
And Veronica Carlson will return. She'll return for the next two Frankensteins.
Yeah?
She gets two Frankensteins after one Dracula.
She does. She also appears with Peter Cushing in The Ghoul a little bit later, too.
Yep. We will not be covering The Ghoul.
No, we will not, unfortunately. This is not the Cushing cast as much as we might wish it was.
So, John, to wrap up our feelings on it, this is a watch, right? This is a...
I think so. Yeah. I mean, once again, I might be tempted to say not, except for in comparison to the other Hammer movies. This is a definite watch. I enjoyed this movie for the most part.
Yeah. And Lee is here. He's here to play.
This might be the best Lee Dracula performance in just his individual scenes.
Get enough screen time.
He doesn't.
Dialogue.
When are they just going to give these movies to Dracula? Just let Dracula be the guy.
It's like the Marx Brothers movies where they think we give a shit about the romantic couple. We don't.
Abbott and Costello, same thing. A lot of those comedy movies where you're just like, get back to the funny. I'm here for the funny. I don't care if these two people fall in love. They're obviously going to. I want antics.
Freddie Francis saying that Dracula is just the fly in the ointment. I'm like, dude, I'm here for the fly.
Yeah.
I don't want the young lovers. They're okay. Actually, these two people are all right, and they're both sexy.
I think they're better than a lot of the other ones we've seen.
They are.
Particularly the guy.
Well, they're clearly a step up from all the who's for tennis that we've had in the previous movies.
Yes, I mean this guy is a tough, like actual kind of action-y hero, which I like.
Right, and he's not a member of the aristocracy. They very clearly point out this guy is just an assistant baker who reads a lot.
Right.
And he doesn't want anyone fucking with his gal. So yeah, I liked it. I'm down for it.
I would say I generally like this movie too.
And I am missing some Cushing because it's been a little stretch. So I'm very happy to be returning to
got him next week. And he's not only back, he's doing something that has been declared. He must be destroyed for it.
Damn it. They should have thought about that after his first experiment.
It is an absolutely great title. Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Like
I admit that even the shitty ones that we're going to be watching, I like the titles.
Yeah.
I like the, taste the blood of Dracula.
Yep.
I like Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. I like the Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Yeah.
I think Dracula AD 1972 is an awesome title.
Because they wrote that title and had no idea where it was going.
Yes.
They're
yes.
like,
sadly, when you see the movie,
here now.
Like, yeah, I can't even wrap my head around it.
Modern day Dracula, that's gonna be crazy.
So yeah. I am very much looking forward to next week.
Me too.
Tune in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, as always, please do. But that is going to wrap up this episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Yeah, right. But what are you getting me for my birthday? You did skip that. You think I didn't notice? I've been waiting this whole podcast. Come on, man.